There comes a moment in every life when the weight of everything you can't control becomes too heavy to carry. The past haunts you, the future terrifies you, and the present feels like it's slipping away no matter how tightly you try to hold on. You wake up with a storm inside your chest, too many questions, too many fears, and a quiet exhaustion from pretending you're okay. But maybe peace isn't missing. Maybe it's just buried beneath your resistance. Buddhism doesn't promise to end the storm. It teaches you how to find calm within it. It shows you how to stop clinging to expectations, how to release control, and how to trust in the quiet intelligence of life as it unfolds. As the Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." And that's exactly what we'll do. Today we begin a journey not to escape life's chaos, but to understand it, embrace it, and rise above it. These are Buddhist lessons that will help you stop worrying and finally trust the process of life, even when everything seems uncertain. 1. The river doesn't need you to push it, it already knows the way. Think about the way a river moves. It doesn't follow a straight line. It twists and turns, it flows over rocks, it carves its path through the earth. Sometimes it rushes quickly. Other times it slows down and becomes still. But no matter what shape it takes or how long it takes, you never question whether the river will eventually reach the ocean. You don't stand by its banks anxiously asking, "What if it gets stuck?" or "What if it never gets there?" You just watch it move, because deep down, you know it will find its way. Now, imagine if the river could think like us. Imagine if it panicked every time the current slowed down, if it questioned every twist, every delay, every obstacle. Imagine if it refused to move unless it knew the whole journey ahead of time. That's exactly what we do in life. Instead of flowing, we worry. Instead of trusting the process, we try to control it. We think that if we're not constantly planning, rushing, or doing something, our lives will fall apart. We convince ourselves that every delay is a failure. Every setback is a sign that we've taken the wrong path. But life is not something you can control like a machine. It's more like that river, alive, intelligent, unpredictable, and constantly moving. The reason we suffer so much is not because life is cruel, but because we resist the way it moves. We want guarantees, not growth. We want answers, not trust. And when we don't get the outcome we expect in the time we hoped for, we panic, we doubt ourselves, and we begin to think that everything is falling apart when, in reality, things might just be falling into place in a way we can't yet understand. Buddhism teaches us something very different from what modern life often demands. It teaches us to observe rather than interfere, to allow rather than force, to understand that there is a natural timing to everything. Just like a flower doesn't bloom before its season, and fruit doesn't ripen when it's not ready, our lives also unfold in their own sacred rhythm. You cannot force wisdom to arrive before you're ready to receive it. You cannot demand healing before the wound has taught you what it came to teach. The clouds don't worry about when they'll rain. The sun doesn't stress about how brightly it shines. They simply exist, aligned with the nature of what they are. And you, too, were never meant to live in a state of tension and control. You were meant to trust that what is meant for you will not miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. When you stop trying to paddle against the current and instead allow yourself to float with the flow of life, something inside you begins to relax. The anxiety fades, the pressure lifts. You begin to see that even the hardest moments had a purpose, that even the confusion was part of your becoming, that every detour was teaching you something you wouldn't have learned if the road had been straight. Sometimes, what feels like a delay is actually divine protection. Sometimes, what seems like a wrong turn is the exact direction your soul needed to go in order to grow. But you'll never realize that If you keep trying to rush your way to clarity, true peace doesn't come from knowing the destination, it comes from trusting the journey. It comes from understanding that the process itself is sacred, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's slow, even when it makes no sense. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to worry about how your story ends. Just take the next step, trust the current, and know that life, like the river, already knows exactly where to take you. Let go. Stop pushing. Stop fighting the current. You are not lost. You are just being carried by a wisdom much older and deeper than your mind can comprehend. And one day, you will look back and realize, the river was never confused. It was just taking its time. 2. Pain is not here to destroy you. It's here to awaken you. When we think of pain, we often think of something that must be avoided, erased, or escaped as quickly as possible. From childhood, we're conditioned to believe that pain is the enemy, that it means something has gone wrong, that if life hurts, then life must be broken. So naturally, we fear pain, we resent it, we hide from it, or bury it beneath distractions, social media, entertainment, noise, anything to keep us from feeling it. But Buddhism invites us to see pain differently, not as a punishment, not as a mistake, but as a necessary part of waking up. Pain is not a dead end. It is a doorway, a signal that something inside you is shifting, calling out for attention, asking to be healed or understood. When you burn your hand on something hot, the pain tells you to pull back so you don't harm yourself further. In the same way, emotional pain is a signal from your soul. It's trying to show you what you need to change, what you need to release, what you need to finally face with honesty and compassion. But here's the problem. Instead of listening to the pain, we fight it. We say things like, "Why is this happening to me?" Or, "I don't deserve this." We assume that suffering means we've made a mistake or that life is against us. We try to numb it, silence it, or fix it with quick solutions that only cover the surface. But no matter how fast we run, pain catches up. Because its purpose isn't to break you, it's to wake you. Pain has a wisdom that comfort cannot teach. It strips away the illusions we've been clinging to. It reveals what we've been avoiding. It humbles us, softens us, deepens our understanding of ourselves and others. Think about the times in your life when you truly grew as a person. It probably wasn't when everything was going perfectly. It was when things were hard, when your heart was broken, when you lost something you thought you couldn't live without, when you were brought to your knees by something you didn't see coming. In those moments, your soul was being reshaped, not destroyed, but transformed. Buddhism teaches us to sit with pain, not run from it, to observe it without judgment, to let it speak. Because when you stop fighting pain and instead ask, "What are you here to show me?" you turn suffering into insight. You allow pain to guide you back to your inner truth. You begin to see that pain is not here to ruin your life. It's here to realign you with what truly matters. And yes, it hurts. Growth always does. Shedding old versions of yourself feels like loss. Letting go of attachments feels like death. But every ending holds the seed of a new beginning. Every ache is a message that you are ready for something deeper. The caterpillar must dissolve in the cocoon before it becomes the butterfly. The seed must crack open before the tree can grow. And in the same way, your pain is breaking you open so that the light can reach the places inside you that have been waiting for healing. So don't rush through the hard times. Don't numb yourself to avoid discomfort. Don't tell yourself that you have to be strong by pretending nothing hurts. True strength is not the absence of pain, it is the willingness to feel deeply without letting that pain define you. It is the courage to stay present with what's real, even when it's messy and raw. When you shift your relationship with pain, you stop asking, "How do I get rid of this?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" And that shift changes everything. Because now, instead of being a victim of life, you become a student of it. You begin to grow through what you go through. And every time you rise after being knocked down, every time you choose understanding over resentment, every time you meet pain with compassion, instead of fear, you awaken more of the wise, peaceful, and powerful being that you already are. So next time pain visits you, don't slam the door. Invite it in. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Ask it what it wants to show you. Because behind every pain is a lesson, behind every tear is a cleansing, and behind every wound is the beginning of a deeper version of you. You are not broken. You are breaking open. 3. Flexibility is the key to inner strength. In the modern world, strength is often misunderstood. We are taught to associate strength with rigidity, with standing tall, never bending, never breaking. We admire those who seem unshaken, unbothered, tough as steel. But Buddhism points us in a very different direction. It teaches that real strength is not found in resisting life, it's found in adapting to it. True strength is not hard, it's flexible, soft and wise, just like bamboo. Picture a bamboo stalk in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, trees around it break and fall, but the bamboo remains standing, not because it fought the storm, but because it bent with it. It moved with the wind, not against it. It allowed itself to sway, to adjust, to yield, because it knew that to survive, it must not resist what it cannot control. You see, most of us have been trained to resist life. When something doesn't go our way, we tense up. When someone hurts us, we build emotional armor. When plans fall apart, we scramble to fix them. We stiffen. We hold on. We try to force life to meet our expectations. But life is not a machine we can program. It is wild. It changes. It surprises. It tests us with moments we didn't see coming. And if we meet those moments with hardness, we begin to crack. We begin to suffer, because resistance creates friction, and friction creates pain. Worry is a perfect example of this resistance. It is the mind's attempt to predict, to prepare, to control a future that hasn't even arrived. When you worry, you become rigid in your thoughts. You cling to specific outcomes. You create pressure for life to unfold a certain way. And when it doesn't, you panic, you blame yourself, or you fall apart. But Buddhism teaches us to approach life like the bamboo approaches the storm, not by resisting, but by adjusting, not by forcing, but by flowing. Flexibility is not weakness. In fact, it's one of the greatest strengths you can cultivate. Because when you are flexible, you are free. You are no longer trapped by rigid expectations. You are no longer shaken by every change, every challenge, every delay. You learn to say, "This didn't go the way I planned, but maybe it's still okay." You begin to trust your ability to move through uncertainty without losing yourself in the process. Think of how water behaves. It has no fixed shape. It moves around obstacles. It finds its way over rocks, under gates, through cracks. It flows, adapts, and continues forward, always. That is the nature of flexibility. It doesn't stop at resistance, it dances with it. And in doing so, it always finds a way. When you stop resisting what you cannot change, when you release the need for life to match your plans, you create space for inner peace. You soften into the truth that things will not always go your way, and that's okay, because your peace no longer depends on perfect outcomes. It depends on your ability to meet life as it is. This is the heart of Buddhist wisdom. To become like bamboo, to remain rooted but not rigid, to hold your values firmly but hold your plans lightly, to allow life to move through you without breaking you. And that's what flexibility looks like, not giving up, but letting go of the tight grip that causes you suffering. So when the next storm comes, and it will tense up, Don't try to control the wind. Instead, breathe. Relax your shoulders, loosen your grip, trust that you can bend without breaking, that you can flow without losing direction, that you can face the unpredictable nature of life with a steady, calm, and adaptable heart. Remember, being strong doesn't mean standing tall through everything. Sometimes, being strong means knowing when to bow to the wind and trusting that when the storm passes, you will rise again, more grounded, more open, and more at peace than before. 4. The present moment is your refuge, not the future. Most of the suffering we carry doesn't come from what's happening right now. It comes from what we imagine might happen next. We lie awake at night, not because the present is unbearable, but because our minds have wandered off into dozens of terrifying futures that don't even exist. We create problems that haven't happened yet. We rehearse tragedies, prepare for rejection, predict failure, and convince ourselves that something bad is come even when everything around us is quiet. This is the mind's addiction to control. It believes that by worrying about what's ahead, it can protect us from pain. It thinks that by imagining every possible outcome, it can keep us safe. But in reality, all it does is exhaust us. Worry doesn't prevent tomorrow's pain, it steals today's peace. The more time we spend lost in the future, the more disconnected we become from the only place where life is truly happening, right here, right now. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is your only true home. It's the only reality you'll ever directly experience. The past is memory. The future is imagination. The only place where your breath exists, your body exists, your peace exists is this very moment. And yet, we rarely live here. We rush through our days like they're obstacles to get through. We treat the now as a stepping stone to something better, always believing that happiness will arrive in some distant moment once we've achieved more, healed more, fixed more, become more. But have you noticed? No matter how much you accomplish, your mind still finds a reason to be anxious. No matter how much you plan, things still go differently than expected. No matter how many answers you chase, life still gives you uncertainty. This is why Buddhism calls the present moment a refuge, because it's the only place where fear cannot touch you. It's the only place where you can actually feel safe, grounded, whole regardless of what's happening around you. When you come back to the present, you quiet the stories in your head. You notice the warmth of the sun on your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the gentle rise and fall of your chest. You realize that, in this very second, you are okay. Not perfect, not complete, but okay. You're alive, you're breathing. You've survived every moment before this one. And this moment is giving you the gift of peace, if only you'll slow down enough to receive it. It doesn't matter what your schedule says. It doesn't matter what your bank account looks like. It doesn't matter what people think about you or how uncertain tomorrow feels. If you can return to the no-weaven for a moment, you'll find something that all the worry in the world could never give you: stillness. But being present isn't just about mindfulness exercises. It's about a deep inner shift in how you relate to life. It means learning to stop chasing a better moment and instead honoring the one you're already in. It means choosing to sit with what's real, even when it's uncomfortable, rather than escaping into fantasy or fear. It means saying, "This is enough. I am enough. Right here, right now." And the more you practice this presence, the more your worries begin to lose their power. You start to see that most of your fears were just thoughts, empty, weightless shadows that only had power because you fed them with your attention. You begin to trust that you can handle life as it comes, one breath, one heartbeat, one step at a time. So next time your mind starts racing toward the future, pause. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply. Ask yourself, what is real right now? And you'll discover that you don't need to know what's coming next to be at peace. You only need to be here, fully, softly, openly. The present moment is not a small thing. It's not something to rush through on the way to something else. It's the doorway to your freedom, the ground beneath your feet, the silent invitation to come home to yourself. Return to it often, because when the world feels loud, when your mind feels heavy, when fear tries to pull you away, the present moment will always be here, patiently waiting, offering you the one thing worry never can: peace. 5. Letting go is an act of wisdom, not defeat. In a world that praises control, letting go is often misunderstood. People see it as weakness, as surrender, as giving up. We're taught that to succeed in life, we must hold on tightly to our plans, our relationships, our beliefs, and our expectations. We are told to never quit, to fight for what we want, to never back down. And so we do. We grip, we cling. We tighten our fists around things and people, and out comes convinced that if we just try hard enough, if we just hold on a little longer, everything will eventually go our way. But Buddhism teaches something profoundly different. It whispers the quiet truth that letting go is not a loss, it is a liberation. It is not a failure of effort, it is the highest form of intelligence. It is not about becoming careless, it's about caring in a way that no longer drains your soul. Letting go is not about closing your heart, it's about opening it to something higher than your attachments. It's about recognizing that clinging to what no longer serves you doesn't make you loyal, it makes you suffer. There comes a point in life when you realize that not everything is meant to be held forever. Some things come to teach you, not to stay with you. Some people come to love you for a season, not for a lifetime. Some paths are meant to be walked only long enough to learn the lesson, not to reach a destination. And the pain of life is not always in what happens, but in our refusal to release what has already passed. We hold on to so many things that weigh us down. We hold on to anger from old wounds. We hold on to people who have already let go of us. We hold on to a version of ourselves that we've outgrown. We hold on to dreams that no longer reflect who we are becoming, and we do it because we're afraid. Afraid of the space that letting go creates. Afraid of the silence that follows. Afraid that if we stop clinging, we will lose control. But the truth is, we were never in control to begin with. Buddhism doesn't ask you to stop caring, it asks you to care wisely. It doesn't tell you to detach from love, it invites you to love without possession. Letting go doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop forcing. It means you release the grip that has been cutting into your hand for far too long. Because the tighter you hold, the more it hurts not just the thing you're clinging to, but you. Imagine holding a rope that's being pulled from the other end. The more resistance you give, the more it burns into your skin. The moment you let go, not in defeat, but in wisdom, the pain stops. Your hand opens, your heart opens, and suddenly there's space. Space to breathe, space to heal, space to allow life to show you something better than what you were forcing. Letting go allows you to return to yourself, to come back to your center, to feel your own heartbeat without the noise of fear and desperation clouding your clarity. When you let go, you begin to see things as they are, not as you want them to be. You start to understand that holding on out of fear is not the same as holding on out of love. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to let go with grace. Letting go also means releasing control over how things unfold. You may have done everything right and still not gotten the outcome you hoped for. You may have given your best, poured your heart into something, and still watched it slip away. That doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't mean you're broken. That means you're human. That means life is teaching you how to trust what is meant for you and to let what's not move through you without resistance. The lotus flower grows in muddy water, not because it avoids the dirt, but because it rises through it. In the same way, you don't rise by holding on to the mud, you rise by releasing it. You grow not by accumulating more, but by shedding what you no longer need. You find peace not by adding more control, but by embracing the mystery. When you let go, you align yourself with the flow of life. You stop trying to swim upstream. You stop trying to manipulate every outcome. You stop telling yourself that happiness lies in things staying the same. And you begin to trust that what leaves your life is not taking peace with it. It is making room for something new. Letting go is not a one-time event. It's a practice, a choice you make every day, in every moment where fear tells you to cling and wisdom tells you to release. Sometimes you will struggle. Sometimes your fingers will tighten again. But every time you choose to soften, to breathe, to trust, you take one step closer to the deep, quiet strength that has always lived inside you. You are not meant to carry everything. You are not meant to fix everything. You are not meant to hold on to everything that touches your life. Some things are just passing through, and that's okay. You are allowed to release. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to stop trying to hold the world in your hands and instead open your palms to the sky and say, I trust. And in that trust is your freedom. 6. Hard times are not blocks, they are bridges. There's a deeply rooted belief that suffering means we've gone the wrong way, that if life is painful, we must be off course, that if our hearts are breaking, our plans are failing, or our days feel heavy with sorrow and uncertainty, then something must be broken. But Buddhism asks us to look again, to see with eyes not clouded by fear or the narrow need for comfort. It invites us to pause in the middle of the storm and realize something sacred. What if this hardship isn't a wall blocking your path, but a bridge taking you somewhere you never could have reached otherwise? Pain, disappointment, loss, and struggle are not detours from the journey. They are part of the journey. They are not proof that you've failed. They are invitations to grow into the version of yourself that comfort could never create. And yes, it's hard, because everything inside you wants the road to be smooth. You want certainty. You want guarantees. You want the light without having to walk through the dark. But the lotus doesn't bloom in crystal water, it rises from the mud. And you too are designed to rise through what feels impossible. Think about the most meaningful turning points in your life. Think about the lessons that shaped your character, that deepened your wisdom, that made you more compassionate, more aware, more alive. Did those lessons come wrapped in ease? Or did they come through fire, through loss, through breakdowns that felt like the end but were actually the beginning of something you couldn't yet see? You see, the mind likes linear progress. It likes neat timelines and clear answers. It wants life to unfold according to a plan. But the soul grows in spirals. It grows in seasons. It grows in silence and struggle and surrender. And often, what looks like a setback on the surface is actually sacred preparation beneath the soil. The tree that stands tall must first develop deep roots underground. And that growth happens in darkness. That rooting takes place in silence. When nothing appears to be happening, everything is happening. When your plans are falling apart, your inner foundation is being built. The waiting seasons, the confusing detours, the painful endings, these are not punishments, they are pivots. They are pressure points guiding you back to your path, even when it doesn't feel like it. But we don't see that when we're in the middle of it, do we? When we're hurting, all we can see is the pain. We say, why me? What did I do to deserve this? We look at others and think they're ahead, that their life is easier, that we've somehow fallen behind. But in truth, there is no behind. There is no universal timeline. Life is not a race, it's a rhythm. And your rhythm includes breakdowns just as much as breakthroughs. One is not a mistake. Both are sacred. In Buddhism, there is no shame in suffering. There is no guilt in confusion. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs that you are alive, that you are feeling, that you are being transformed. Buddhism doesn't ask you to avoid pain. It teaches you to sit with it, to breathe through it, to allow it to break the shell of who you thought you were, so the truth of who you really are can begin to emerge. And sometimes, the people who've endured the deepest pain are the ones with the most powerful presence. Not because they were untouched by life, but because they allowed life to touch them fully. They walked through fire and came out softer, not harder, kinder, not colder. They didn't let pain close their heart. They let it break their heart open wider. That is the purpose of hard times. Not to destroy you, but to deepen you. Not to punish, but to purify. Not to shatter, but to strip away what's not real. To remove the illusions you've outgrown. To remind you that your strength doesn't come from being untouched, it comes from being broken and rebuilt, again and again, with more awareness each time. So when you find yourself in a chapter that feels too heavy to carry, when your prayers feel unanswered and your vision feels lost in the fog, remind yourself gently, this is not the end. This is not a failure. This is the in-between, the sacred space between who you were and who you are becoming, the cocoon stage before the wings, the silence before the song. Trust it, even if it hurts, even if it doesn't make sense right now, even if you're tired and nothing feels clear. Trust that life is always moving you forward, sometimes through peace, sometimes through pain, but always toward your highest unfolding. There's a teaching in Zen that says, the obstacle is the path. In other words, the thing you think is blocking your way is actually showing you the way. It's revealing where your inner work needs to happen. It's bringing to light the wounds that are still unhealed, the beliefs that are still limiting, the attachments that are still holding you back. It's not here to stop your growth. It's here to demand it. So don't run, don't numb, don't give in to the voice that says, this is the end of your story. Instead, look deeper. Ask, what is this here to teach me? What strength is this trying to uncover in me? And most of all, be gentle with yourself. Healing doesn't happen on a schedule. Transformation doesn't follow your calendar. The most important work you'll ever do is the work no one else sees. The quiet battles, the silent tears, the nights when you chose not to give up. You are not falling apart. You are falling into place. This is not a wall. This is a bridge, a sacred passage to a wiser, more grounded, more loving version of you. One day, you'll look back on this time and say, that's when everything changed. That's when I was being shaped, even though I didn't know it. So keep walking, one step, one breath, one choice at a time. Your pain is not pointless. Your struggle is not in vain. You are crossing a bridge, and there is peace on the other side. 7. Trust is the highest form of courage. We often think of courage as something loud, something fierce, bold, heroic. We picture warriors charging into battle, people standing up to injustice, voices raised in defiance. And yes, that is courage. But there is another kind of courage, a quieter, deeper kind that doesn't look impressive on the outside, but shakes the foundations of fear from within. It's the courage to trust when nothing makes sense, to surrender when everything inside you wants to control, to choose peace when worry is pulling at your throat. This is the courage that Buddhism teaches. This is the courage that changes your life from the inside out. To trust the process of life, especially when it's painful or uncertain, is not weakness, it is strength beyond words. Because trust requires you to let go of what you think you know. It requires you to sit in the middle of the storm and say, even this has meaning, even this has purpose, even this belongs. That doesn't mean you like it. That doesn't mean you're not afraid. but it means you no longer allow fear to dictate your energy. You no longer allow panic to poison your spirit. You breathe, you bow, you trust. But let's be honest, trust is hard, especially when you've been disappointed, especially when life has taken people you loved, shattered plans you built with hope, or left you in seasons where no matter how hard you tried, things didn't get better. You might ask, how can I trust when life has hurt me? And the answer isn't simple, but it begins with one truth. Trust doesn't mean believing everything will go your way. It means believing you will be okay, even if it doesn't. You are not trusting the outcome, you are trusting your ability to face the outcome. You are trusting your strength to survive it, your wisdom to learn from it, and your soul to carry on despite it. Trust is not about prediction, it's about presence. It's about saying, I don't know what's coming, but I know I'll meet it with grace. This shift in perspective is everything. When you live in fear, you need certainty. You try to control people, events, emotions. You ask endless questions. What if it goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I never get there? And each question pulls you further away from the present moment. Each question fills your heart with tension and your mind with noise. But when you begin to trust, you stop needing answers. You stop needing guarantees. You begin to walk through life with open hands, not clenched fists. Buddhism calls this non-attachment. It's not the absence of love or care. It's the absence of clinging. It's the freedom that comes from knowing that your peace doesn't depend on everything being perfected, depends on your ability to remain centered, no matter what life throws your way. And to cultivate that kind of trust, you must first understand this. Life is not happening to you. Life is happening for you. Even the detours are part of the path. Even the closed doors are part of the design. Even the waiting, the confusion, the heartbreak, they are not delays in your story. They are your story. And when you trust that, your whole relationship with life begins to change. You stop asking, why is this happening? And you start asking, what is this teaching me? You stop trying to escape the moment, and you start sinking into it. You begin to see that everything is connected, that nothing is random, and that even the hardest chapters are leading you somewhere sacred. Trust also means letting go of the belief that you must do everything alone, that you must carry every burden, fix every problem, or plan every detail. It means stepping back and allowing life, or the divine, or the universe, however you define it, to guide you. It means understanding that you are part of something larger than your ego, something wiser than your plans, something more timeless than your fears. And in that understanding, there is relief, there is rest. Imagine a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they cry, but they don't stop trying. Why? Because they trust that falling is part of walking. They don't see it as failure, they see it as movement, growth, exploration. They don't need a reason to believe they'll eventually stand. They just trust the process. And eventually, they do. We forget that. We forget that falling is not proof we're failing, it's proof we're trying, proof we're human, proof we're alive. To trust the process of life means trusting that the timing is not wrong, that the pace is not slow, that the unfolding is not broken. It means trusting that everything is exactly as it needs to be, even when you don't like it, even when it hurts, even when you don't understand it yet. Because trust is not built on comfort. It is built on surrender. And surrender doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean giving up or doing nothing. It means showing up fully, giving your best, and then releasing the outcome. It means pouring your heart into what you love, and then letting go of how it's received. It means speaking your truth, and then letting go of how others react. It means doing your work with integrity, and then letting go of whether or not it's acknowledged. This kind of trust changes everything. It softens your relationships. It lightens your mind. It allows joy to return, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped waiting for perfection to give yourself permission to feel peace. You begin to smile in the uncertainty. You begin to rest, not because everything is settled, but because you've settled into yourself. And the truth is, every time you choose trust over fear, you become lighter. Every time you surrender the need to control, your soul breathes a little easier. Every time you stop chasing and start allowing, you move one step closer to the truth. You are already enough. You are already held. You are already on your way. So yes, trust takes courage, tremendous courage, but it's a courage that softens rather than hardens. A courage that opens your hands instead of clenching your jaw. A courage that doesn't roar but whispers, "Even this is sacred. Even this will pass. Even now, I trust." You've walked through so many storms already, and yet here you are, breathing, learning, growing. That is proof. Not of how perfect life is, but of how strong you are. Not of how clear the road will be, but of how much you've already survived. So, as you stand on the edge of uncertainty, again don't fall back into fear, fall into trust, into the great unknown that always ends up being more beautiful than what you tried to control, into the quiet assurance that no matter what comes next, you will meet it with grace, with presence, and with the courage to keep trusting, one breath at a time. Because that is the way of the peaceful warrior, and that is the way forward. 8. You were never meant to carry everything. That's why it feels so heavy. There's a quiet lie many of us grow up believing. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It settles in slowly through experiences, expectations, and the unspoken messages we absorb from the world around us. It says, you must carry it all, alone. It says if something goes wrong, it's your fault. If someone is unhappy, you must fix it. If you want peace, success, or love, you must earn it by sacrificing yourself silently. So you keep adding things to your back. Responsibilities, guilt, fear, doubt, deadlines, roles, regrets, and you carry them because somewhere deep inside you believe you're supposed to. But what happens when you try to carry what was never meant to be yours? What happens when your hands are always full, but your heart feels empty? You wake up exhausted, not just in your body, but in your soul. You look at your to-do list and wonder why it never ends. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. You wonder when you'll finally feel light again, when the peace you keep chasing will arrive. But it never does, because peace cannot enter a soul that's already too full of weight it was never meant to carry. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is attachment, not just to things, but to identities, stories, roles, and burdens we've picked up along the way. You're not suffering because you're weak. You're suffering because you've forgotten that not everything belongs to you. You've forgotten that even the strongest tree lets go of its leaves in autumn, that even the ocean withdraws at night, that even the sun sets. Nature understands something most of us forget. Release is not failure, it is renewal. Let's pause and look honestly. How much are you carrying that was never yours? How many thoughts are you holding on to that only bring you fear? How many judgments about yourself did you inherit from other people, parents, society, culture, without ever questioning if they were true? How many times have you said yes when your soul was begging you to say no? How many days have you spent trying to hold up everyone else's world, while your own world quietly crumbled beneath your feet? It's time to stop. It's time to put something down, because the truth is, the more you carry, the further you drift from yourself. The more tightly you cling, the less space you leave for life to breathe through you. You were not created to live in a constant state of tension. You were not designed to function like a machine. You are a living being, a soul with softness, sensitivity, and sacred needs. And when you ignore those needs, when you force yourself to carry what your heart cannot hold, it doesn't make you strong. It makes you suffer. There is a difference between responsibility and self-sacrifice. There is a difference between caring for others and abandoning yourself. Buddhism reminds us of the middle path, the path that honors both effort and ease, both action and stillness. You can show up for others without losing yourself. You can care deeply without carrying everything. You can be devoted without being drained. One of the most profound Buddhist teachings is the idea of non-grasping. It means we don't cling not to people, not to roles, not to expectations. We hold life gently. We participate in it fully, but without the illusion that we must control it or be the source of everything. When you embrace non-grasping, you realize that letting go isn't about walking away from responsibility. It's about releasing the invisible burdens that were never aligned with your truth. Letting go might look like finally forgiving yourself for that mistake you made years ago. It might look like releasing the pressure to always be productive, to always please, to always smile when you feel like breaking. It might look like closing the chapter on a relationship where you've been giving more than you've received. Or maybe it's even simpler, it's turning off your phone for a while, sitting in silence, saying, "I need rest," without guilt, taking your own well-being seriously, not as an afterthought, but as your foundation. Because the truth is, no one else can give you peace if you're holding on to pressure. No one else can lighten your load if you refuse to set it down. Healing begins the moment you decide, "I no longer want to suffer in silence. I no longer want to be everything for everyone. I want to be whole for myself." It's a radical act of self-compassion to say, "I was never meant to carry all this." And once you say it, you begin to notice how your shoulders relax, how your breath deepens, how your thoughts become quieter, how your heart begins to speak again, softly at first, then louder, because it's been waiting for you to stop doing and start listening. The world will not fall apart if you rest. People will not stop loving you if you set a boundary. Life will not collapse if you take a step back to care for your own soul. In fact, the opposite is true. When you become lighter, you become more present. When you become rested, you become more grounded. When you become whole, you become more loving, not because you're pouring from depletion, but because you're finally giving from overflow. And when you release what is not yours to carry, you make space for what is: joy, clarity, intuition, creativity, peace. You begin to feel again, not just the weight of the world, but the breeze, the sun, the laughter, the love, the things you couldn't fully feel when your arms were too full of heaviness. So if you're tired, let it be okay. If you're overwhelmed, let that be a signal, not that you're failing, but that you're full, too full, and it's time to unpack. Not just the physical clutter, but the emotional weight, the mental habits, the beliefs that whisper, "You are only worthy if you carry it all." No, you are worthy because you are. You are enough as you are. And the most beautiful version of you is the one that remembers how to let go, how to be soft, how to say no, how to say yes to peace, to rest, to the quiet, to the truth, that your life is not meant to be a performance. It's meant to be a presence. So take a breath. Put something down. Maybe not everything, but something. Because even one burden released is a step closer to freedom. Even one moment of rest is a doorway to clarity. And even one gentle whisper of "I choose to trust" begins the sacred journey back home to yourself. You were never meant to carry it all. That's why it feels so heavy. But now, you don't have to anymore. Let it go. 9. You are allowed to slow Down the soul doesn't grow in a hurry. Somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that you are always behind, that if you're not rushing, you're wasting time, that if you're not hustling, producing, improving, chasing, then you're falling behind, missing out, failing to live up to some invisible standard. So you keep moving. You wake up with pressure on your chest. You check your phone before you check in with your soul. You count the things you haven't done. You measure your worth by how busy you are. You run from one task to the next, hoping that maybe if you do enough, fix enough, achieve enough, you'll finally feel enough. But the truth is, the faster you go, the more you lose yourself. The more you fill your time, the emptier your heart becomes. And the deeper you fall into the race, the more distant you become from the very thing you're chasing: peace. Buddhism teaches a different rhythm. It invites you into a world that moves slower, softer, deeper. A world where progress is measured not by speed, but by presence. Not by how much you do, but by how deeply you live. It whispers a truth that feels foreign in a world addicted to urgency. Your soul does not grow in a hurry. Your healing is not on a schedule. Your unfolding is not a race. The lotus takes time to bloom. The seasons take time to shift. The mountain doesn't rush to rise, nor does the moon apologize for moving slowly across the sky. Nature is never in a rush, and yet everything in nature arrives exactly when it's meant to. Why should your life be any different? You see, the idea that you must always be achieving, always improving, always rushing, that idea is not wisdom. It is conditioning. It is the echo of a culture that worships doing and forgets the value of being. But you are not a machine. You are not here to perform your way into worthiness. You are a human being. And being takes time. It takes stillness. It takes space. When you slow down, something sacred happens. You begin to hear what you couldn't hear before: the quiet truth of your own heart. You begin to notice the beauty that was hidden in plain sight, the way sunlight dances on the floor, the rhythm of your breath, the softness in your chest when you let yourself just be. You begin to remember that joy isn't waiting for you in the next achievement. It's already here, in this moment, in the space between the noise. But slowing down is hard, not because it's unnatural, but because we've been taught to fear it. We've been taught that if we stop moving, we'll fall apart, that if we pause, we'll be left behind, that if we rest, we're being lazy or unproductive. And so we push ourselves, even when we're tired. We keep going even when our bodies are begging us to rest. We tell ourselves we'll slow down later, after the next project, after the next milestone, after we finally catch up. But we never do, because later never comes. There is always something else. There is always more. But Buddhism reminds us, nothing is more urgent than your presence. Nothing is more important than the relationship you have with yourself, with this moment, with your breath. When you slow down, you begin to live from your center instead of from your fear. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to choose your life instead of being dragged through it. And the beauty is, when you live slowly, you live more fully. You savor your food. You listen when someone speaks. You walk without needing to arrive. You breathe without trying to control. You do less, but feel more. You accomplish less, but understand more. And in that slowness, you realize, life was never meant to be a checklist. It was meant to be an experience, a sacred, unfolding experience. Slowing down doesn't mean you give up on your goals. It means you stop treating your life like an emergency. It means you stop measuring your value by your output. It means you let yourself be human, not perfect, not efficient, not always on. Just present, just enough, just here. Some of your deepest growth will happen in moments when nothing appears to be happening, in the silence between your thoughts, in the pause between one season and the next. in the stillness of a single mindful breath. These are not wasted moments. These are moments where your soul begins to breathe again. But the world won't give you that space unless you claim it. So you must learn to protect your peace like a sacred garden. You must learn to say no to the urgency that rushes you away from yourself. You must learn to sit with the discomfort of not doing, to rest without guilt, to breathe without needing to earn it. Because your soul is not a machine, it is a field, and fields do not bloom through force. They bloom through care, patience, and time. So if you're tired, slow down. If your heart feels heavy, slow down. If you've forgotten who you are beneath the noise, slow down. Life is not leaving you behind. Life is waiting for you to return. Return to your breath. Return to your body. Return to the space where nothing needs to happen for you to feel whole. You are allowed to move gently. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to measure your day not by what you accomplished, but by how deeply you lived. Slow is not weak. Slow is not broken. Slow is sacred. And in that slowness, you will rediscover the truth. That your worth was never in what you did, it was always in who you are when you're not trying to be anything else. Let the world rush. Let the noise spin. But you may walk slowly. You may rest freely. You may live deeply. Because your life is not meant to be chased. It is meant to be felt. And that only happens when you finally slow down. 10. Healing doesn't mean you'll never hurt again. It means you no longer fear the hurt. There is a quiet misconception that healing is a final destination, that one day you'll wake up and the weight will be gone, the thoughts will be quiet, the pain will be erased. The past will feel like a dream, and the future will look like a guarantee. You'll be untouched by life, unaffected by anything that once broke you. You'll have arrived, whole, healed, complete. But that's not how healing works. Healing is not a clean break. It is not a straight line. It is not a trophy you earn after enough time or effort. Healing is not the absence of pain. Healing is your relationship with pain changing. Healing is the moment you realize that you can feel deeply without being destroyed, that you can sit with sorrow and still breathe, that you can be cracked wide open and not fall apart but fall deeper into yourself. In Buddhism, the idea is not to escape suffering, but to transform your relationship with it. To understand that life includes pain not because something is wrong with you, but because that is the nature of life. Everything changes, everything passes, everything is touched by time. To live is to be vulnerable, to love is to risk loss, to care is to feel. There is no way around it. But there is a way through it. And the way through is not by pretending you're fine when you're breaking, not by forcing yourself to be strong when your soul is tired, not by trying to erase the scars or silence the memories. The way through is by turning toward what hurts not, to judge it or fix it, but to witness it, to say, I see you, I feel you, and I will not abandon you. Because that's what most of us are truly afraid of, not the pain itself, but the fear that we'll be left alone inside of it, that we won't survive it, that we'll drown, that it will swallow us whole. And so we build walls, we numb, we distract, we run. But the more we run from pain, the more power we give it. The more we try to bury it, the more deeply it roots itself in our bodies, our thoughts, our lives. True healing begins when you stop running. When you sit down with your grief and say, you're allowed to be here. When you meet your anger, not with shame but with curiosity. When you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what does this part of me need? That is healing, not perfection, not certainty, not being above pain, but being with it, gently, honestly, without fear. You begin to notice the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is what happens. Suffering is the story you tell yourself about it. Pain says, I lost something. Suffering says, I'll never be okay again. Pain says, this hurts. Suffering says, this will define me forever. But when you begin to heal, you no longer believe every story your mind tells. You start to see that you are not your pain. You are the awareness behind it. You are the space that holds it. You are not broken. You are breaking open. Buddhism reminds us that everything is impermanent. Emotions rise and fall like waves. Thoughts pass like clouds. What feels unbearable today might soften tomorrow. Healing doesn't mean the storm will never come again. It means when it does, you know how to return to your breath. It means when your heart aches, you don't panic, you breathe through it. You listen. You rest. You remind yourself that you've felt this before and survived. Because healing is not measured by how little you hurt. It is measured by how much more gently you respond to yourself when you do hurt. It's choosing kindness over criticism, silence over reaction, compassion over judgment. It's learning to hold your sadness like you would hold a child, not to scold it, not to fix it immediately, but to let it be seen, to let it know it belongs, because even your pain wants to be loved. And you begin to understand something radical. Nothing inside you is wrong. Not the fear, not the anxiety, not the doubt, not the part of you that still aches years later. These are not flaws. They are echoes, reminders, calls for attention, not because they want to ruin your peace, but because they want to be integrated into it. Your pain is not asking to be buried. It's asking to be included, to be held within the light of your awareness, to be understood, not erased. You are allowed to be a work in progress. You are allowed to still have bad days. You are allowed to still cry for something you thought you were over. Healing doesn't happen on a timeline. It doesn't follow a checklist. It doesn't arrive with a warning. It happens in quiet moments, in ordinary choices, in the way you speak to yourself at night, in the way you slow down when you're overwhelmed, in the way you forgive yourself for needing more time, more space, more gentleness. And one day, you notice the shift. The memory still hurts, but it no longer defines you. The fear still whispers, but it no longer controls you. The sadness still comes, but you no longer push it away. You let it pass through like a guest welcome, but not permanent. That is healing. That is freedom. You stop needing to pretend. You stop needing to be fixed. You stop waiting for a version of yourself that never struggles. And instead, you begin to love the version of yourself that is here now. The one who is still learning, still stumbling, still rising, still showing up. That is the most powerful kind of healing, the kind that says, even in my pain, I am whole. So if you're still hurting, that's okay. If the past still knocks at your door sometimes, that's okay. If you're still figuring it out, still learning how to breathe through the dark, still remembering how to trust again, let that be okay. You don't have to be done to be healing. You don't have to be unshakable to be strong. You don't have to be free from pain to be at peace. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to feel everything and still know that you are safe within yourself. The goal is not to erase your history. It's to hold it in your hands and say, this too is part of me, and I will love myself anyway. Because the deepest healing is not the healing that removes all pain. It is the healing that removes your fear of pain. And that kind of healing, that is unshakable. That is yours. That is the beginning of a peace no storm can touch. Real peace begins when you stop trying to fix everything and start embracing what is. From a young age, many of us are taught that life is a puzzle we must solve, that happiness is a formula, that peace is a reward for those who get everything right. So we start trying to fix things. Ourselves, others, the world. We set goals, make lists, design routines, and write mental instructions for how life should be. We carry this silent belief that once we fix this one thing, our body, our career, our past, our relationships, then we'll finally feel calm, finally feel whole. But what happens? The list never ends. We fix one problem and another appears. We reach one milestone and immediately raise the bar. We tell ourselves, once I heal this part of me, once I get this result, once I feel more confident or less anxious or more successful, then I'll rest. Then I'll be at peace. But peace, in this model, always lives just out of reach like a mirage in the desert. The more we chase it, the further away it seems. Buddhism invites us to let go of that chase completely, to stop running, to stop fixing, to stop believing that peace is somewhere else, later, after. It invites us into a radical new understanding. Real peace isn't something you find when life is perfect. It's something you discover when you stop demanding perfection. Peace begins when you stop trying to change what is and start embracing it as it is. It begins when you stop saying, "This shouldn't be happening," and start asking, "Can I be present with this too?" Peace is not found in control, it's found in acceptance. And acceptance does not mean resignation, it means recognition. It means seeing reality clearly without resistance. It means saying, "This is what is happening right now. I may not like it, I may not understand it, but I am willing to meet it as it is." This shift, this surrender is one of the most powerful transformations a human being can experience, because it frees you from the exhausting game of endless self-improvement. It frees you from the mental war of not enough. It frees you from the need to have all the answers. When you stop trying to fix everything, you start to see that much of what you were trying to fix never needed fixing at all. Your feelings weren't broken, your confusion wasn't failure, your pain wasn't weakness. These were all simply parts of your experience, asking to be witnessed, not judged. Think of a storm. It doesn't need to be stopped. It needs to be understood. You don't control the wind by yelling at it. You don't quiet the thunder by resisting it. You let it pass. You find shelter. You wait, and in time it moves on. Your inner storms work the same way. The more you fight them, the more they grow. But when you soften into them, when you sit quietly and say, "I will not run from this," something remarkable happens. You begin to feel safe inside yourself, even when the world outside is in chaos. That's what real peace is. It's not the absence of discomfort, it's the presence of compassion. It's not a life free of problems, it's a heart free of resistance. A mind that no longer turns every experience into a battlefield. A spirit that knows how to sit in stillness and say, "I don't need to understand everything to feel okay." And in that stillness, you begin to notice a sacred truth. Most of your suffering wasn't coming from the experience itself. It was coming from your need to escape it. It was coming from your fight against reality. Your belief that something was wrong, that you were wrong, that life had betrayed you. But when you stop trying to force reality into your preferred shape, you begin to see the hidden perfection in even the messiest moments. You realize that every feeling has its place, that sadness has wisdom, that fear has something to teach, that loneliness is a doorway, not a prison. You stop labeling your emotions as good or bad. You start listening to them instead. And as you do, your inner world becomes less like a war zone and more like a temple, a place where all of you is welcome, a place where healing doesn't mean becoming someone else but finally coming home to who you already are. And what happens when you live from that place? You stop needing life to be different for you to feel safe. You stop needing others to change for you to feel whole. You stop needing your past to disappear or your future to be guaranteed. You begin to live now. You begin to be now. You take one breath and it's enough. You feel one heartbeat and it grounds you. You sit in silence, and it doesn't scare you anymore, it frees you. This doesn't mean you stop growing. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means your growth is no longer fueled by fear. It means your care is no longer driven by control. It means you show up to life not as a fixer, not as a fighter, but as a witness, as someone who is awake, as someone who knows that peace isn't something you earn, it's something you remember. And it's already inside you. It's in the space between thoughts. It's in the moment you exhale and realize you don't need to rush. It's in the decision to rest without guilt, to feel without explanation, to stop mid-sentence and say, I don't need to figure this out today. To stop seeking the next solution, the next improvement, the next version of you, and to sit with the you who is already here. Tender, honest, human. That is where the real healing begins. That is where the journey ends and begins again, not in fixing, but in holding, not in striving, but in surrendering. And the irony is when you stop trying to fix everything, the things that truly need healing begin to heal naturally. Your nervous system softens, your mind clears, your heart starts beating in rhythm with the present. You remember who you were before the world convinced you to be something else. You remember that the person you've been trying to become was never far away. She or he was just waiting for you to stop and listen, to slow down, to let go, to embrace what is. So let this be your permission. You don't have to be constantly fixing yourself to be at peace. You don't have to have all the answers to feel okay. You don't have to escape this moment to find a better one. This moment is already enough. You are already enough, even in your mess, even in your doubt, even when it's all still unfolding. Let it unfold. Let it be. And allow yourself to meet it not with resistance, but with reverence. Because when you stop trying to fix everything, you remember something sacred. Nothing was broken. You just forgot how to see it. You just forgot how to be with it. You just forgot how to trust the stillness between each breath. And now you remember. The greatest journey is returning to yourself. There is a journey that no map can guide you on, no passport can prepare you for, no road sign can mark your direction. It's not a journey across landscapes or oceans. It doesn't take you to a new city or a distant land. This journey is inward. It leads not outward to achievement, but inward to awareness. It leads not to who you wish to be, but to who you've always been. And the greatest truth, you've been on this journey all along, even when you didn't know it, even when you thought you were lost. Buddhism reminds us that the path is not something we find outside of ourselves. It's something we awaken to within. All the teachings, the practices, the insights, they aren't there to give you something new. They're there to strip away what isn't you. They're there to dissolve illusion, to unlearn noise, to return you to the silent wisdom already inside you. The truth is not far, it is near, closer than breath, closer than thought. But it can only be heard when you begin to come home to yourself. This homecoming is not about becoming someone better. It's not about chasing enlightenment like a trophy. It's not about reaching some imagined destination where you're finally enough. It's about remembering that you've always been enough, even in your chaos, even in your doubts, even in your imperfection. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. And wholeness does not mean being unshaken. It means being fully alive. It means being present with whatever arises: joy, sorrow, fear, love, and meeting it not as a stranger, but as an old friend. It means welcoming every part of your experience as sacred, even the ones that hurt. It means knowing that your healing, your peace, your freedom, they don't come from outside. They come from the way you relate to what's already inside. But here's the truth. Most of us have forgotten how to be with ourselves. We've become so used to performing, pleasing, proving, that we've turned our own presence into something unfamiliar. We've been taught to look outward for validation, to seek answers in opinions, in achievement, in comparison, and in that search, we've become strangers to our own hearts. You wake up and immediately check your phone. Notifications, messages, noise. Before you've even breathed in the day, you're already pulled out of yourself. And it continues: mails, conversations, tasks, distractions. You go through your day doing things, saying things, moving through motions. And by the time night falls, you feel tired but disconnected. You've spent the whole day being everything for everyone, but you haven't truly been with yourself. This disconnection is what creates so much suffering. Not the tasks, not the people, not the chaos, but the forgetting. Forgetting your own center, forgetting the quiet presence beneath the thoughts. Forgetting that you are not your roles, not your productivity, not your pain. You are the awareness behind it all. You are the calm beneath the current. You are the witness, not the storm. The journey back to yourself begins with remembering. Remembering how to breathe consciously, how to sit in silence without needing to fill it, how to feel emotions without labeling them as good or bad, how to look in the mirror and say, "I am here," and that is enough. It is a soft journey, a sacred one, and it cannot be rushed. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to be still, to stop running, to put down the stories you've carried for so long, the story that says you're only worthy when you're doing, the story that says you're too much, not enough, too sensitive, too slow. But as you release those stories, one by one, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to hear your own voice again. Not the voice of fear, but the voice of truth. Not the voice of conditioning, but the voice of intuition. And that voice doesn't shout, it doesn't pressure, it doesn't demand. It whispers gently, like a stream running beneath the noise, like a soft breeze through the trees of your soul. It says, "You're okay, you're safe, you're already home." The Buddhist path teaches that you don't need to go anywhere to awaken. You simply need to wake up where you are. Every moment is a doorway. Every breath is an invitation. Every difficulty is a teacher. The outer world will always change. People will come and go. Seasons will rise and fall. But your inner home, your awareness, your stillness, your essences, always here, waiting, holding you. This is what the great masters mean when they speak of coming home. It is not about escaping life. It is about being fully present in life, fully rooted, fully awake. It's not about detaching from the world. It's about detaching from illusion, from the belief that you need to become someone else to be loved, from the belief that peace lives in the future, from the belief that you are separate from life. You are not separate. You are life itself. You are the breath in the leaves, the pause between thoughts, the silence behind the sound. You are not here to conquer the world. You are here to remember that the world lives within you. And this remembering doesn't happen all at once. It happens in the quietest of moments, in the way your chest rises when you breathe, in the way your eyes soften when you forgive yourself, in the way your shoulders relax when you stop trying to be everything. You'll still get lost sometimes. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old patterns. But each time you remember, each time you return, you grow more grounded, more aware, more gentle. You begin to carry yourself differently. You begin to speak from a deeper place. You begin to live in alignment not with perfection, but with presence. And slowly, the things that once made you anxious begin to lose their grip. The roles that once defined you begin to dissolve. The people who don't honor your soul begin to fade. Because you no longer look outside for what's already within. You begin to trust life again. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to rest not because everything is resolved, but because you no longer need resolution to feel peace. You are no longer fighting life. You are flowing with it. You are no longer performing love. You are being love. You are no longer chasing meaning. You are embodying it. This is the true journey. Not forward, not upward, but inward. And every step you take inward brings you closer not to a new version of you, but to the real you, the one that's always been here, waiting, watching, loving. So, if you've been searching, pause. If you've been striving, breathe. If you've been asking, what's next, try asking, what's now? Because the greatest destination is not far away. It's right here. It's this breath. This moment, this you. You don't need to become someone else, you just need to remember who you are. In the quiet corners of your heart, behind the noise of your thoughts and the weight of your fears, there lives a version of you untouched by time, a self that is not shaped by success or failure, a self that is not determined by titles, roles, or appearances, a self that was whole before the world told you who to be. Before you were judged, before you were wounded, before you were told that you needed to be more to be loved. That self is not gone. It's simply been buried beneath years of noise, expectations, and stories, buried under the pressure to perform, to please, to prove, buried beneath the belief that worth is something you must earn instead of something you already are. And so, you began the journey maybe without even realizing it, a journey to become something, to be better, wiser, smarter, kinder, more healed, more spiritual, more productive, more enough. But in that striving, you began to forget. You started believing that your peace lives in the future, that your value depends on how others see you, that your happiness is a reward for finally becoming good enough. You traded your being for becoming. You turned your sacred essence into a project, a checklist, a competition. And the more you became, the more disconnected you felt. This is the paradox of spiritual seeking. We search outward for what already lives within. We chase transformation when what we truly need is remembrance. Buddhism reminds us, the path to awakening is not about adding more to yourself. It's about shedding what is false, peeling back the layers of illusion, dissolving the masks you've worn for so long that you forgot they were even masks. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to remember who you were before the world convinced you otherwise. You are here to return to your breath, to your body, to the silence beneath your thoughts, to the voice within that has never stopped whispering, "This is you, this has always been you." The truth is, you don't need to fix yourself. You were never broken. What needed healing was not your essence, but your relationship to it, your forgetting, your fear, your story. The idea that you must chase, perform, or compete to earn a place in this world. But you belong. Simply because you exist. You are already worthy, already sacred, already whole. But wholeness doesn't look like perfection. It looks like presence. It looks like sitting with your sadness instead of escaping it. It looks like forgiving yourself for the days you were too tired to show up. It looks like holding your anger with compassion instead of shame. It looks like returning to your breath 1,000 times, even if you wandered away 1,001. You don't need to become a new person to live in peace. You need to unlearn the belief that your worth depends on your doing. You need to release the identities that were never yours to carry. The identity that says you are only valuable if you're useful. The identity that says you are only lovable if you're happy. The identity that says you must always be strong, always be giving, always be calm, always be more. Beneath all those identities, You are simply here, breathing, aware, alive, and that is enough. When you begin to live from that place, from that inner knowing, you stop chasing versions of yourself that were created out of fear. You stop trying to mold your life to meet other people's expectations. You stop comparing your path to others and begin walking your own with reverence. You begin to see that the beauty of your life is not in how much you can do, achieve, or master. It's in how deeply you can remember what's already true. That you are here to experience, not perform. That you are here to feel, not impress. That you are here to awaken, not accumulate. This remembering brings you home or not to the version of you others expect, but to the version of you that your soul has been longing to live. And this return is quiet. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in small, sacred ones. When you choose rest over rushing. When you choose to sit with yourself rather than scroll. When you say no, not out of anger, but out of love for your boundaries. When you smile at your reflection without needing to change anything. When you cry and no longer see that as weakness but as proof that your heart is still open. Each of these moments is a doorway, a portal back to truth, a reminder that the path is not linear, that growth is not about constantly becoming more but about softening into what you already are. So much of the suffering we carry comes from trying to become someone we're not. We see curated lives, perfect images, polished identities, and we forget that behind every image is a human soul, struggling just like us. We internalize their appearance and turn it into a mirror that tells us we're behind, lacking, broken, unworthy. But that mirror is a lie. It shows only the surface. It does not reflect your soul. It cannot capture your essence. It cannot measure the depth of your being. You are not here to be like anyone else. Your path is yours alone. Your rhythm is sacred. Your timing is divine. There is no version of you more worthy than the one reading these words right now. The one who has felt loss and kept loving. The one who has known doubt and kept seeking. The one who has walked through darkness and still carries light. That you, that real, raw, radiant you's, the one your soul has been waiting for you to come home to. So stop searching for yourself in places you've already outgrown. Stop chasing a version of you that doesn't honor your truth. Stop measuring your worth by standards that don't reflect your heart. Instead, sit still, breathe deep, and listen. Not to the voice that says you need to do more, be more, fix more, but to the quiet voice that says, I'm still here. I never left. That voice is your compass. That stillness is your sanctuary. That remembering is your freedom. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to deserve it. You only need to allow it. And when you down, you remember what's always been true. You'll stop seeking peace in distant places. You'll find it in your breath, in your body, in your being. In the deep inner knowing that you are not here to become someone else. You are here to be exactly who you already are. Fully, lovingly, unapologetically. And that is more than enough. You are not your thoughts. You are the stillness that watches. There is a voice in your head that speaks all day long. It narrates your experiences, evaluates your actions, and comments on the world around you. Sometimes it's kind. Other times it's critical, fearful, repetitive. It jumps from memory to memory, fear to fear, plan to plan, never fully resting, never fully present. It says things like, you're not doing enough. You should have known better. What if something goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I'm not loved? And we listen. We believe this voice. We assume that because it sounds like us, it must be us. That because it comes from inside our own head, it must be true. We identify with every word it says, every image it projects. We let it decide our worth, our mood, our future. But Buddhism offers a quiet, powerful truth that changes everything. You are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness that hears it. You are not your thoughts. You are the stillness that watches them arise and fall. You are the open sky, not the passing clouds. You are the canvas, not the paint. You are the silent witness, not the noise. This teaching is simple, but it is revolutionary, because for most of your life you've been trapped inside your own mind without even realizing it. You've been living through filters, stories, projections. You've been reacting to thoughts as if they were reality. But thoughts are not facts. They are mental events, temporary, fleeting, often inaccurate. They are conditioned by your past, by your fears, by your experiences. They are echoes of memory, not messengers of truth. The mind is like a river, always flowing. But you are not the river. You are the one standing beside it, watching it pass. The problem is not that you have thoughts. The problem is that you've become entangled in them, lost inside them. You've forgotten that you are not the content of your thoughts, but the space in which they appear. And when you begin to realize this, when you begin to separate your awareness from your thinking, you unlock the doorway to true peace. Because suddenly the thought that says, "I'm not enough," no longer defines you. You see it for what it is, a conditioned voice, not a reflection of your essence. The thought that says, "This will never get better," no longer drowns you. It becomes a passing wave, not a permanent truth. The mind may still speak, but you no longer believe everything it says. You begin to live in the gap, the sacred space between the thought and the one who hears it. And in that space, there is freedom. But this freedom doesn't come from fighting your thoughts. It doesn't come from suppressing them, correcting them, or judging them. It comes from observing them with gentle awareness. It comes from learning to sit with the noise and say, "Ah, there's that voice again. Thank you for your opinion, but I am not you." This is mindfulness. Not the absence of thought, but the awareness of it. Not the erasing of noise, but the deepening of silence beneath it. When you practice this awareness, your relationship with your mind transforms. You stop being reactive. You stop being dragged into old stories. You stop spinning in cycles of anxiety and regret. Instead, you pause. You breathe. You remember. You watch the mind speak, and you rest in the awareness that needs no words. And something remarkable begins to happen. You begin to see clearly, not through the lens of fear, not through the lens of comparison or judgment, but through the lens of presence. You start to feel your own inner stillness not as a concept, but as a living truth, a spaciousness, a softness, a deep inner calm that was always there, hidden beneath the mental clutter. This stillness is not something you have to earn. It is your natural state. It's who you were before the world taught you to overthink, to worry, to constantly do. It's the essence of your being, the open space from which all thoughts arise and to which they all return. But to live in that stillness, you must become intimate with your mind. You must learn its patterns, its tricks, its habits. You must learn to recognize when you're lost in thought and gently bring yourself back to the body, back to the breath, back to the moment. This is not always easy. The mind is persuasive. It will try to pull you back into the drama. It will try to convince you that every thought is urgent, every emotion permanent. But each time you step back, each time you become the watcher instead of the reactor, you grow stronger in your awareness. You deepen your center. You reclaim your peace. And that peace does not mean your mind goes silent forever. It means you're no longer afraid of it. It means the thoughts can come and go and you remain grounded. It means the waves can rise and you remain the ocean. You no longer try to silence the mind with force. You embrace it with understanding. You no longer try to fix every thought. You witness them with love. You no longer fear your inner noise, because you've found the silence beneath it. And that silence is not empty, it is full. Full of presence, full of life, full of clarity and compassion and wisdom. It doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. That is who you are beneath it all. Not the anxious thought, not the fearful story, not the judging voice, but the awareness that hears it all without becoming any of it. You are the stillness that watches. You are the light that sees. You are the space in which all things arise and the peace that remains when they pass. So next time your mind tells you, you're behind, pause, breathe. Remember, that's just a thought. I am not behind, I am here. Next time your mind says, you'll never be good enough, pause, breathe, say gently, that's a voice from the past. I am already enough. Next time your mind spins with fear, worry, regret, pause, breathe, come home. Come home to the part of you that never left. Come home to the space between the thoughts. Come home to the quiet presence that is your true self. You don't need to silence the mind. You only need to stop mistaking it for who you are. Because beneath the mind, beneath the thoughts, beneath even your emotions, there is something deeper. There is a stillness, a truth, a freedom, and it has been waiting for you all along. The art of living is learning how to let life live through you. Most people spend their lives trying to manage, predict, and control the world around them. They wake up each day with a plan, a list, a goal, and a mental blueprint of how things should go. They try to protect themselves from pain, from failure, from discomfort. They grip the steering wheel of life with white knuckles, trying to force things into shape, trying to make sure nothing goes wrong. But life isn't a machine to be managed. It's not a puzzle to be solved. It's not a problem to be fixed. Life is not linear or logical. It doesn't follow your timing, your map, or your preferences. Life is a river, flowing in directions your mind cannot predict. It is wind that moves through mountains and valleys, never asking permission. It is fire, rain, stillness, movement all at once. It is a mystery, not a math problem. A sacred unfolding, not a series of controlled outcomes. And here's the great paradox. The more you try to control life, the more it slips from your grasp. The tighter you hold, the more resistance you feel. The more you demand certainty, the more anxious you become. And eventually you realize you are not living life, you are managing fear. You are not dancing with the present, you are trying to wrestle it into submission. But Buddhism gently, wisely, lovingly says, let go. Not as a command, but as an invitation. Let go of the belief that you are supposed to control everything. Let go of the illusion that your worth depends on your results. Let go of the fear that life will fall apart if you stop trying so hard. Because life isn't asking you to control it. It's asking you to receive it. It's asking you to open to it. It's asking you to feel it, to listen to it, to flow with it, to surrender to the current, and in doing so, discover that life can carry you better than you ever carried yourself. You see, the art of living isn't about becoming more efficient at managing chaos. It's about stepping back and letting life live through you. It's about softening your grip on the wheel and letting the wind guide you. It's about realizing that your deepest peace doesn't come from control, it comes from trust. A trust that isn't passive, but deeply powerful. A trust that says, I don't know where this is going, but I trust that I'll find the strength to meet whatever comes. This shift from control to trust, from force to flow, is the heart of the spiritual journey. It doesn't mean you stop showing up. It doesn't mean you become passive. It means your actions are no longer driven by fear. It means you're no longer exhausting yourself trying to control outcomes. It means you begin to move in rhythm with life, not against it. You begin to listen more deeply to your inner signals, instead of the external noise. You begin to feel when it's time to act, and when it's time to wait, when it's time to push forward, and when it's time to be still. You stop asking, "What should I be doing?" and start asking, "What is life inviting me into right now?" And this doesn't just bring peace, it brings clarity. Because when you stop trying to force the river to flow faster, you finally begin to see where it's actually going. You see the opportunities that were hidden by your rushing. You hear the messages that were drowned out by your mind's noise. You discover that life is not random. It is wise, it is conscious, it is sacred. It is communicating with you always, not through your plans, but through the quiet unfolding of each moment. To let life live through you is to live with presence instead of pressure. It's to allow your breath to lead instead of your anxiety. It's to surrender not because you're weak, but because you've realized that your real power lies in alignment, not in resistance. This is not what most of us are taught. We are taught to push, to plan, to hustle, to grind. But Buddhism offers a different path, the path of presence. The path that says, sit, breathe, listen. Be here. Be now. Watch how the moment unfolds, not so you can control it, but so you can participate in it fully. Because the more you participate in the moment as it is, the more it begins to guide you. It begins to speak to you, through intuition, through stillness, through spontaneous insight. Life is always speaking, you just have to stop shouting over it. And when you down, you create space. When you begin to allow instead of demand, life begins to move through you like music. Your breath becomes a rhythm. Your actions become dance. Your words become truth. Your presence becomes healing. And in that state, you don't feel like you're doing life. You feel like you are being lived. You become a vessel, an instrument, a channel. You begin to realize that the most beautiful things you've ever created didn't come from pressure. They came from alignment. They came when you were open, trusting, listening, allowing life to express itself through you. This is the deepest surrender, when you stop trying to be the author of every detail and instead become the page upon which life writes its poetry. That doesn't mean you become passive, it means you become available. Available to love, available to truth, available to change, available to inspiration, available to silence, available to the sacred rhythm of now. And in that availability, your life begins to transform, not because you made it happen, but because you finally got out of your own way. You removed the layers of resistance, the layers of should, must, have to, and underneath you found something softer, something truer, something you can finally trust. Because life doesn't need to be controlled to be beautiful. It needs to be trusted. And you don't need to control yourself to be worthy. You need to trust the self that lives beneath the masks, the self that is not afraid to surrender, the self that knows that surrender is not collapse, it's communion, it's alignment, it's grace. And in that grace, you are no longer just surviving life. You are being lived by it, carried by it, loved by it, held by it. This is the art of living, not holding tightly, but letting go, not fixing, but flowing, not fearing, but trusting, not rushing, but listening, not forcing, but allowing. Let life live through you. Let your breath guide you. Let your inner stillness speak louder than the noise. And when it does, when you allow this sacred exchange to happen, you will feel something you may not have felt in a long time. Peace that isn't earned. Joy that isn't manufactured. Love that doesn't need to be chased. Clarity that doesn't come from effort, but from presence. This is not a dream. This is your nature. Let go of the illusion that you must manage everything. And remember the truth. You are not here to force life. You are here to feel it, to move with it, to become one with it. Let life live through you, and you will finally know what it means to truly live. True freedom begins the moment you stop resisting what already is. What if everything you were running from was never your enemy? Not the sadness, not the confusion, not the discomfort, not even the pain. What if none of it was actually trying to harm you, but instead trying to awaken you? You see, most people don't realize how deeply they're at war with reality, not in a loud, obvious way, but in the quiet resistance that lives beneath the surface of their everyday life. It's the tension in your shoulders when things don't go as planned. It's the disappointment that floods in when someone doesn't meet your expectations. It's the silent voice that says, "This shouldn't be happening," every time life veers off course. It's the fear that clings to control, the tightness that arises in uncertainty, the grief you haven't allowed yourself to fully feel. We live in resistance to what is, and that resistance, though, invisibly is the root of most suffering. We resist our emotions, labeling some good, others bad, trying to chase the pleasant and avoid the painful. We resist our bodies, wishing they were different, stronger, younger, prettier. We resist time, trying to outrun the present moment, haunted by the past or obsessed with the future. We resist change, clinging to what's familiar, even if it hurts us. We resist uncertainty, trying to script a life that was never meant to be scripted. But here's the truth that Buddhism reveals with profound clarity. Suffering doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from our resistance to what's happening. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, and the difference between the two lies in our willingness to be present with what is. You don't suffer because sadness visits you, you suffer because you tell yourself it shouldn't. You don't suffer because someone let you down, you suffer because you expected them not to. You don't suffer because things changed, you suffer because you believed they never would. Resistance is the voice that says no to life. Acceptance is the whisper that says yes, even this. And that yes, that sacred yes is not passive. It's not giving up. It's not saying you enjoy the pain. It's saying you are no longer afraid to be fully present with it. You are no longer trying to resist your humanity. You are no longer fighting the flow of life. You are flowing with it. This is where true freedom begins. Not in changing the world, not in escaping discomfort, but in releasing the inner war against reality. Freedom begins the moment you stop trying to control everything and start allowing life to unfold, moment by moment, breath by breath. Imagine holding a heavy box with both hands. Your arms ache, your back tightens, but you refuse to let go. You carry it everywhere, wondering why you're exhausted. Then one day, you set it down. Not because someone else told you to, not because you had all the answers, but because you finally realized you don't have to carry what you were never meant to hold. That's what letting go of resistance feels like. You begin to set down what was never yours to control, the behavior of others, the outcome of your plans, the unfolding of time, the direction of the wind. You begin to soften. You begin to breathe again. You stop swimming upstream and let yourself be carried by the river. Not because you've given up, but because you've remembered that the current already knows where it's going. This kind of surrender is powerful. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you peaceful. Because now, you're not using all your energy to fight life. You're using it to live life, fully, consciously, lovingly. When you stop resisting sadness, you begin to understand it. When you stop resisting fear, you begin to see what it's trying to protect. When you stop resisting stillness, You begin to hear the voice beneath the noise. You begin to live in harmony with reality, not because reality always feels good, but because you've stopped demanding that it always does. And from that place of deep acceptance, you begin to move differently. You speak with more clarity. You listen with more presence. You feel without fear. You respond instead of react. Because you're no longer lost in resistance, you're grounded in awareness. You become like the tree that doesn't resist the storm it bends. And because it bends, it survives. You become like the ocean that doesn't resist the wave it rises and falls with it. And because it moves with the tide, it remains whole. You become like the sky that doesn't resist the cloud it watches with stillness. And because it watches, it never loses itself. This is not just poetic, it's practical. In every moment, you have a choice: resist or accept. When traffic slows you down, do you tighten or do you breathe? When a conversation turns uncomfortable, do you defend or do you listen? When the future feels uncertain, do you panic or do you trust? Acceptance doesn't mean you like everything. It means you meet everything without fear. It means you allow life to be life. It means you stop trying to bend the moment into your preference and begin bending your presence into the moment. And when you live this way, you begin to feel something you may have forgotten: freedom. Not the freedom of everything going your way, but the freedom of not needing it to. Not the freedom of constant pleasure, but the freedom of being at peace even in pain. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of presence. Because now, you are no longer a prisoner of your mind. You are no longer at war with what is. You are resting in the truth that everything belongs. Everything is part of the whole. Even this moment, even this breath, even this feeling. And in that resting, the war ends. The tension softens. The mind quiets. The heart opens. And you realize the world didn't need to change for you to feel free. You just needed to stop resisting it. So the next time life brings you something unexpected, pause. The next time you feel overwhelmed, breathe. The next time your mind says, "This shouldn't be happening," gently whisper back, "Maybe it should." Not as a resignation, but as a doorway. A doorway back into the present. A doorway back into trust. A doorway back into peace. Because that's all acceptance really is. A return to what is already here. A return to the breath. A return to yourself. That is where your freedom lives. Not in the future. Not in control. Not in certainty. But in the quiet, powerful act of letting this moment be exactly as it is and letting yourself be exactly as you are within it. That is the end of resistance and the beginning of peace. When you stop chasing life, life starts coming to you. From the moment we open our eyes each morning, the chase begins. We chase time, chasing tasks, chasing validation. We chase the version of ourselves we think we're supposed to become, the future we think we need, the peace we believe lives somewhere on the other side of more effort, more discipline, more success, more love, more answers. And underneath it all, there is an unconscious belief shaping every decision, every emotion, every breath we take, that we are not yet where we are supposed to be. So we keep running. We run toward goals that were handed to us by someone else's idea of success. We run toward people who don't see our worth, hoping they'll eventually give us the love we deny ourselves. We run from discomfort, from stillness, from the haunting feeling that maybe we've missed something essential. But no matter how fast we run or how far we go, the feeling never leaves. It lingers in our chest like an ache, that strange, hollow longing, that whisper of something is still missing. And here lies the great illusion. We think we're chasing life, but really we're running away from it. We mistake motion for meaning, productivity for purpose, noise for truth. And in doing so, we lose touch with the one thing we were truly searching for all along. Not success, not security, not even happiness, but presence. A real, rooted connection with what is here, right now, in this exact breath. Buddhism teaches us something radically different from what the modern world rewards. It says, stop chasing, stop striving, stop grasping, because the more you chase life, the more it escapes you. The more you reach, the more you create distance between you and what you want. The more you believe that peace exists somewhere else, the more you miss the peace that already lives within you. You cannot chase peace and find it. You cannot outrun yourself and arrive whole. You cannot force what is meant to unfold naturally. And this is not a message of passivity, it is a message of trust, a message of deep alignment. A message that says, the most powerful thing you can do in this world is not to chase life, but to become still enough for life to come to you. This is not easy at first, because it requires you to surrender the habit of doing just for the sake of doing. It asks you to step away from the comfort of distraction, the illusion of control, the momentum of urgency. It challenges the part of you that believes your value lies in how hard you try, how much you achieve, or how fast you move. But in that discomfort lies a sacred doorway, opening into a new way of being, a way of living that isn't based on force but on flow. When you stop chasing life, you begin to align with it. You start to feel when it's time to act and when it's time to rest. You begin to move from intuition instead of anxiety. You notice the quiet invitations of the universe, the way the wind changes, the way your body speaks, the way your heart softens in the presence of truth. You begin to see that life doesn't need to be hunted down, it needs to be listened to, trusted, allowed. And when you do that, when you stop chasing, something profound begins to happen. Life begins to meet you where you are. Not because you've mastered it, not because you've figured it all out, but because you've finally become available. You've created space. You've stopped pushing long enough for something deeper to emerge: clarity, grace, alignment, synchronicity. You begin to notice that the things you once ran after now start coming to you effortlessly. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You are no longer radiating lack. You are no longer acting from fear. You are no longer creating resistance by demanding results. You have become receptive. You have become still enough to receive. And in that stillness, you start to understand the sacred rhythm of life. It moves in cycles. It honors timing. It rewards alignment, not effort. It doesn't operate on urgency, it operates on presence. And the more you harmonize with that rhythm, the more peaceful your life becomes. Not because nothing goes wrong, but because you're no longer fighting reality at every turn. You've learned to wait without worry. You've learned to rest without guilt. You've learned to trust that what is meant for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. This trust becomes your power. This ease becomes your strength. So much of what we chase is rooted in the belief that we are incomplete, that if we just become someone better, more enlightened, more healed, then we'll be worthy of rest, of peace, of love. But Buddhism reminds us, you don't need to become someone else to be whole. You don't need to do more to deserve stillness. You are already enough. You are already complete. And the moment you stop chasing life is the moment you return to yourself. That return is the real goal, not the external achievement, but the inner homecoming. The quiet realization that everything you were searching for out there was always waiting for you within, not in the future. Not in some imagined version of yourself, but here, now, in this moment. But to experience that, you must stop running. You must sit with yourself. You must allow silence to do its work. And that silence will not always feel peaceful. At first, it may bring up everything you've been avoiding, the grief, the fear, the loneliness, but sit with it anyway, because beneath that noise is a deeper stillness, a truth that cannot be chased, only remembered, a peace that cannot be earned, only accepted. This is the turning point. The moment you stop seeking and start seeing, the moment you stop grasping and start receiving, the moment you stop running and realize you were never lost. You were just moving too fast to hear the wisdom whispering beneath the noise. When you live this way awake, open, grounded, you discover that life doesn't need to be chased. It wants to come to you. Love wants to find you. Peace wants to rest in you. Truth wants to rise through you. All of life is trying to reach you, but it cannot find space when you are always in motion, always filling the silence, always doing instead of being. So slow down. Let go. Listen. Stop running after life and let life catch up to you. Let it find you sitting in stillness, not in defeat, but in power. Let it find you breathing deeply, not because you've achieved peace, but because you've allowed it. Let it find you at home within yourself, because that's where life has always been waiting. Not ahead of you, not outside you, but inside you, in the quiet, in the breath, in the presence you offer to this moment. That is where life begins, not in the chase, but in the stillness. Your presence is the most powerful gift you can offer this world. We spend so much of our lives trying to be extraordinary, trying to make an impact, to leave a mark, to be remembered. We think we need to do something grand, something loud, something impressive in order to matter. So we chase influence, status, achievement. We build resumes, platforms, reputations. And in the process, we often overlook the most powerful, the most sacred, the most life-changing offering we can ever give, a full and undivided presence. We live in a world that constantly pulls us away from the now. Notifications, deadlines, endless to-do lists, the pressure to be somewhere else, to be someone else, to do something more. We're here but not really. Our body is in the room, but our mind is already planning tomorrow. We're listening but only half hearing. We're breathing but barely feeling. We live in fragments, thinking, checking, scrolling, analyzing, always somewhere other than where life is actually unfolding. And the cost of this disconnection is enormous. Because the one thing every soul longs for more than validation, more than attention, more than advice is presence, real presence, the kind that doesn't look past you, the kind that doesn't try to fix you, the kind that says, I see you, I hear you, I am here with you, and that is enough. But how can we offer presence to others if we haven't yet learned how to offer it to ourselves? Buddhism teaches us that presence is not something we create, it's something we return to. It's not a skill we learn, it's our original state, before the thoughts, before the fears, before the noise. Beneath everything we chase, beneath everything we avoid, there is a quiet, steady presence, always available, always watching, always still. This presence is not a concept. It is not a philosophy. It is an experience. And the more deeply we touch it, the more clearly we begin to see. Everything we've been searching for is already here. But presence cannot be accessed through striving. It doesn't respond to force. It doesn't live in the future. It arises only in surrender, in stillness, in the simple, sacred act of being here fully, consciously, gently, with whatever is. The truth is, your presence is more healing than your solutions, more powerful than your opinions, more transformative than your advice. Because presence doesn't try to change what is, it allows what is to unfold in its own wisdom. When you are fully present with yourself, your breath begins to deepen, your body begins to soften, your thoughts begin to settle, You become aware of sensations, feelings, impulses. You begin to listen, not just to the world around you, but to the world within you. And in that listening, you discover that peace was never waiting on the other side of achievement, it was waiting on the other side of attention. True presence is the essence of mindfulness. It is not passive. It is not lazy. It is not doing nothing. It is doing everything with full awareness. Washing a dish becomes a meditation. Walking across the room becomes a sacred act. Holding a hand becomes a transmission of love. Silence becomes communion. In presence, every moment becomes enough not because it's perfect, but because you're no longer demanding that it be anything other than what it is. And that presence, once cultivated within, begins to ripple outward. You begin to show up differently in your relationships. You stop rushing to respond and start truly hearing what is being said. You stop performing and start simply being with people. You stop needing to fix others' pain and begin offering the most healing gift of all, your calm, grounded, loving presence. You begin to understand that most of the time, people don't need your words, they need your attention. They don't need your solutions, they need your stillness. They don't need you to be perfect, they need you to be real. And when you give them that, when you meet someone with full presence, you give them permission to come home to themselves. You mirror their worth. You hold space for their truth. You become the sanctuary they didn't know they needed. But none of this is possible if you are not first present with yourself. So this is where the journey begins, not with fixing the world, but with becoming the kind of person who is fully alive in each breath, in each step, in each sacred moment. That means learning to sit with your own discomfort instead of numbing it. It means watching your thoughts without being carried away by them. It means breathing deeply into the body, especially when the mind wants to escape. It means saying, "This is enough, I am enough, now is enough." And from that place of rooted presence, everything changes. Not because the world outside shifts instantly, but because your way of relating to it becomes softer, clearer, more open. When you're present, you're no longer reacting, you're responding. When you're present, you're no longer judging, you're witnessing. When you're present, you're no longer grasping, you're allowing. This presence doesn't need to be taught in words, it's felt energetically. It creates safety without saying a word. It opens hearts without giving advice. It invites stillness simply by being still. And what the world needs now more than ever is people who are truly here. People who are not lost in distraction. People who are not consumed by comparison. People who are not living on autopilot, always waiting for the next thing. But people who can sit in silence and feel peace. People who can walk slowly and feel alive. People who can listen without waiting to speak. People who can hold space for others without needing to fix them. People who are not chasing life but embodying it. You don't need to be a guru to offer presence. You don't need a perfect life or an enlightened mind. You need only a willingness to come home to this moment. Again and again. Even when it's messy. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when your mind tells you there's something better somewhere else. Because there isn't. The only thing more sacred than what's happening right now is your willingness to fully be with it. So let this be your practice. To wake up each day, not to rush into doing, but to return to being. To bring your awareness into your breath, not to control it, but to honor it. To listen when someone speaks, not to reply, but to understand. To eat with gratitude. To walk with intention. To rest without guilt. To feel your feelings fully, without labeling them as wrong. To meet the moment, not with resistance, but with reverence. Because your presence is your power, not your performance, not your productivity, not your perfection, but your presence. And when you live from that place, when you move from presence instead of pressure, you will begin to see the sacred everywhere. In the way sunlight moves through a window, in the sound of the wind brushing through the trees, in the eyes of a stranger, in the rhythm of your own breath, in the quiet stillness of your own being, you'll begin to realize that life was never asking you to be extraordinary. It was asking you to be here, fully, tenderly, truthfully, to offer your attention, to offer your stillness, to offer your open heart. And in doing so, you become a vessel for peace, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. Because in the end, it's not the grand gestures that heal the world. It's the quiet ones. The moment you chose to truly listen, the moment you chose to be still, the moment you chose to meet some Nino with answers, but with your full, gentle, unwavering presence, that is your greatest gift. And it begins now, right here, in this moment, in this breath. The art of holding space for your own soul. There comes a moment in every journey, often quiet, often unannounced, where you stop looking outside for answers. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally begun to hear the faint whisper within. A voice not loud or dramatic, but ancient. A voice that doesn't instruct you to do more or be more, but simply asks, can you hold space for yourself? Not fix yourself, not analyze yourself, not constantly improve yourself, but gently, lovingly hold space for the soul within you to breathe. In the world we've built, everything moves at a breakneck pace. Productivity is praised, hustle is idolized, healing has become another checkbox. Self-love is packaged as a 10-step plan, and even rest has become something to master. But the soul, the true you that lives beneath your stories, beneath your roles, beneath your history, does not move on command. It does not unfold on a schedule. It cannot be manipulated into blooming. It opens in stillness. It opens in safety. It opens when it is seen without being judged. And that requires something we rarely offer ourselves: space. Not physical space, but emotional, energetic, spiritual space. The kind of space where you're allowed to just exist. The kind of space where you don't have to prove anything. The kind of space where pain is allowed to speak, and fear is allowed to soften, and grief is allowed to breathe without being silenced. Buddhism teaches that to be fully awake, you must be fully present with what is. And yet, most of us spend our days trying to escape the present moment, not because we don't care about life, but because we've never been taught how to sit with the life that lives within us. We weren't taught how to sit with sadness, so we run from it. We weren't taught how to hold fear, so we numb it. We weren't taught how to honor confusion, so we bury it. We weren't taught how to embrace emptiness, so we fill it. And in all our efforts to avoid the discomfort within us, we abandon the very part of us that most needs our care. But what if you could sit with your sadness not as a problem to solve, but as a part of you that longs to be heard? What if you could listen to your anger not to suppress or indulge it, but to understand what boundary it's asking you to honor? What if you could meet your anxiety not with shame or panic, but with the gentleness of a friend saying, "It's okay, I'm here." This is the art of holding space for your own soul, and it is one of the most sacred practices you will ever learn. It means creating an inner environment where all parts of you are welcome: the broken parts, the scared parts, the lost parts, the wise parts, the silent parts, the parts that ache and the parts that shine. It means becoming your own sanctuary, your own refuge, your own soft landing. This is not something society rewards. There is no medal for being kind to yourself in silence, no spotlight for sitting still and breathing through your pain. No applause for holding your own hand when no one else is watching. And yet, these are the moments that shape your soul. These are the moments when healing actually happens not through force, but through presence, not through answers, but through allowance. You do not have to be over something in order to be at peace. You do not have to fix a feeling to be free. You do not have to rush your way through healing. You only need to create space within yourself for life to move through you at its own pace, in its own rhythm, with its own wisdom. Imagine your inner world like a sacred temple, and inside that temple your soul sits waiting, not waiting for you to be perfect, not waiting for you to have it all figured out, but simply waiting for you to return, to sit beside it, to breathe with it, to hold it gently. Most people never do. They look for peace in other people. They search for healing in achievements. They seek wholeness in being understood by others. But none of these things will ever satisfy the longing of a soul that has not yet been met by its own guardian you. When you finally turn inward, not with criticism, but with compassion, you begin to see that your pain was never the enemy. It was the unopened letter, the call home, the sacred messenger saying, "Come back to yourself." And when you do, when you begin to hold space for your own being, the transformation is subtle but profound. You no longer rush your healing. You no longer silence your feelings. You no longer believe every anxious thought. You start to trust that your body knows what it's doing. You begin to soften into your own presence, not as something fragile, but as something powerful. You realize that your gentleness is not weakness, it is wisdom, because it takes courage to be tender with your own wounds. It takes strength to feel without fixing. It takes clarity to sit without solving. It takes love to hold yourself as you are. And in that holding, in that quiet act of honoring your inner world, something begins to shift. You no longer look to others for permission to exist. You no longer chase approval to validate your worth. You no longer see emotions as enemies to conquer. Instead, you begin to live from wholeness. You walk through the world, not needing to prove anything but simply radiating the quiet power of someone who is at home in their own soul. That kind of presence is rare. That kind of stillness is magnetic. That kind of wholeness is not loud, but it is unmistakable. People will feel it, even if they can't name it. Because there's something unshakable about a person who has learned to sit with their own pain and still remain open. There's something luminous about a heart that has cracked open and still chooses love. There's something sacred about a soul that has walked through the fire of its own suffering and come out the other side, not hardened, but softened. That can be you. Not because you've never been hurt, but because you've stayed. Because you've listened. Because you've held space. Because you've chosen again and again to befriend your inner world rather than abandon it. So let this be your practice now. To sit each day, even for a few moments, in stillness. Not to get anywhere, not to become anything, but to simply be, to listen, to breathe, to notice, to say to every part of yourself, "You are welcome here." Because when you hold space for yourself, you begin to heal. And when you begin to heal, you begin to return. And when you return, the world no longer feels like something you need to conquer, it feels like something you belong to. You stop needing to fight for peace, because peace has found its way into the home you've built inside yourself. And that peace, quiet, steady, unshakable, is the kind of peace that can never be taken away, because it doesn't live in outcomes. It lives in awareness. It lives in presence. It lives in you. And it always has. The moment you let go is the moment you begin to truly live. There comes a point in every person's life where the weight becomes unbearable. It doesn't always happen dramatically. Sometimes it's a quiet, unraveling, slow realization that you've been carrying too much for too long, responsibilities that don't belong to you, pain that wasn't yours to begin with. Expectations shaped by a world that never paused to ask who you really are. And even as you smile, even as you keep moving, something inside you starts to whisper, "This can't be it. This can't be life." You try to hold it together. You try to fix things, fix people, fix yourself. You try to control outcomes, perfect your routines, calculate the right words, the right steps, the right strategies to make everything fall into place. But despite your best efforts, life keeps showing you the truth. Control is an illusion, and the more you cling, the more you suffer. And then, almost imperceptibly, the moment arrives. The moment you can no longer hold on. The moment you stop fighting. The moment you let go. Not out of defeat, but out of clarity. Not because you've given up, but because you've woken up. Woken up to the truth that life is not something you master through control. It's something you align with through surrender. This is the beginning of true peace, not a shallow, performative calm, but a deep, soul-level stillness that arises not from getting what you want, but from releasing your demand that things be any different than they are. It is the peace that arises when you stop resisting your own life, the peace that finds you when you finally stop searching. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, but this does not mean you must stop loving, caring, or dreaming. It means you must learn to hold all things gently, not with the desperate grip of fear, but with the quiet reverence of presence. Because everything, yes, everything is temporary. Every relationship, every success, every loss, every emotion, every breath. When you cling, you suffer twice. You suffer when things go wrong, and you suffer every day leading up to it by fearing they will. But when you let go, you become free. Not free from responsibility, not free from pain, but free from the illusion that you can outrun impermanence. Free from the burden of needing everything to last forever. Free from the constant tension of trying to hold your entire world together with shaking hands. And in that freedom, something astonishing happens. You begin to actually experience life. Not the idea of life. Not the plan of life. Not the version of life that exists in your mind's projections. But life itself, unfiltered, uncontrolled, alive. You begin to taste your food. You begin to feel your breath. You begin to hear your own laughter again, not as a performance, but as a spontaneous expression of joy. You begin to notice things you've forgotten how to see, the movement of light across a wall, the quiet rhythm of your own heartbeat, the way the wind carries secrets you'll never fully understand. Letting go doesn't mean apathy, it means trust. It means you stop trying to force life into your blueprint and instead allow life to show you what it had in store all along. It means you stop demanding that people change to meet your expectations and start meeting them where they are, with compassion. It means you stop chasing certainty and start embracing the mystery as a sacred companion rather than an enemy. Letting go is not the end of the journey, it is the beginning. Because as long as you're holding on, gripping tightly to outcomes, identities, and imagined versions of yourself, you are not truly living. You are surviving, managing, controlling. But your soul was not born to be a manager of existence. It was born to be an experiencer of the divine unfolding. You don't have to let go all at once. You don't have to figure it all out today. You begin small. You let go of the need to know what happens next. You let go of the argument playing on loop in your mind. You let go of the belief that your worth is tied to your productivity. You let go of yesterday's failures, tomorrow's anxieties, and all the ways you thought your life should look by now. And what's left? Just this moment. This breath. This body. This sky. And in that simplicity, something sacred stirs. You begin to remember that you don't need to chase peace. It is already within you, waiting patiently for you to stop covering it with noise. You don't need to become someone better in order to feel whole. You simply need to remove the layers of expectation and fear that were never yours to carry. You begin to feel lighter not because your life has changed, but because your relationship to it has. This is the quiet miracle of letting go. Nothing around you may change, but everything inside you does. Suddenly, you can breathe. Suddenly, you can see clearly. Suddenly, you can rest not as an escape, but as a return. Letting go doesn't mean you no longer care, means you now care wisely. It means you stop pouring your energy into battles that aren't yours to fight. It means you learn the sacred art of discerning what's yours to hold and what's meant to pass through. It means you honor your feelings, but no longer become them. It means you speak your truth, but no longer need it to be accepted in order to feel valid. It means you love with your whole heart, but without gripping or fearing the ending. It means you move through life with open hands and a grounded heart. And in this state, this surrendered aliveness, you become the kind of person who radiates peace. Not because you've conquered life, but because you've stopped trying to control it. You begin to walk slower. You begin to listen deeper. You begin to hold others gently, because you've learned to hold yourself that way. Letting go doesn't make you passive, it makes you present. It allows you to act from clarity rather than compulsion. It invites you to live with intentionality rather than urgency. It returns you to your center again and again and again. And from that center, you begin to bloom. Not perfectly, not all at once, but truthfully, rooted in what matters, connected to what is real. This is not a once-in-a-lifetime event, it is a daily practice. Every day you will be invited to let go of the noise, let go of the narrative, let go of the fear, let go of the version of yourself that is shaped by striving. And every time you do, you will meet yourself again more real, more soft, more alive. So let go because you're giving up, but because you're ready to come home. Let go not because life has broken you, but because life has opened you. Let go not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to truly live. Right here, right now, fully awake, fully human, fully free. The stillness beneath every storm. Life has a way of arriving with noise, loud, unexpected, disorienting. One day, you are walking peacefully through your life, and the next, something uninvited crashes through the silencia diagnosis, a heartbreak, a betrayal, a loss, a change you never saw coming. Storms don't always give warnings. Sometimes they appear out of the blue, and suddenly, everything you thought was certain is shaken. Your plans fall apart, your routines vanish, your identity feels cracked, and in the chaos, fear creeps in disguised as confusion, anger, panic, sorrow. It whispers, "You've lost control," and the spiral begins. In those moments, you scramble for something to hold on to. You analyze, strategize, distract, run. You try to fix the storm, to end it, to outthink it. You tell yourself it's temporary, but still you're afraid. Not just of the storm itself, but of the silence it threatens to drown. You begin to wonder, will I survive this? Will I ever feel peace again? But Buddhism offers a different perspective. It doesn't deny the storm, it doesn't minimize the suffering, but it points to something deeper, something beneath the chaos. A truth so simple, yet so easily forgotten. There is stillness under every storm. Not after the storm, not before the storm, beneath it. Even when the wind howls, even when the sky collapses, even when everything you knew breaks into pieces beneath all of it, there is a still place within you that has not been touched. That stillness is not a concept, it is not a belief system, it is your original home. It is the you that exists before thought, before fear, before identity. It is the part of you that watches, witnesses, holds, the part that does not panic when the mind does, the part that does not run when the pain rises, the part that remains unmoved, not out of indifference, but out of pure presence. You may have forgotten it. You may have become tangled in the storm for so long that you forgot there is a space within you that no wind can reach. But that stillness has never left. It doesn't need you to find it. It needs only for you to remember it. This is the sacred invitation of every storm, not to fight harder, but to go deeper, to turn inward, not outward, to stop trying to escape the chaos and, instead, drop below it. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the center from which movement arises. It is not passive, it is immensely powerful, because it allows you to respond rather than react, to choose rather than collapse, to remain rooted even as everything around you shifts. Most people try to wait out the storm. They tell themselves they'll be okay once this is over, once the situation is resolved, once the pain passes, once the future becomes clear. But that mindset keeps you chained to suffering, because life will always bring new storms. There is no end to impermanence. The goal is not to build a life that never shakes, it is to build a relationship with yourself that is steady regardless of what shakes. To do that, you must begin to practice stillness not as a luxury, but as a necessity. That means sitting quietly, even when your mind is loud. It means breathing deeply, even when your chest is tight. It means pausing, even when everything in you wants to run. It means asking, what is here beneath this panic? And listening for the answer that doesn't come from thought, but from awareness. Stillness is not something you achieve. It is something you surrender to. It is the act of returning, again and again, to the breath, to the body, to the moment. It is the remembrance that no matter how wild the waves become, you are not the wave, you are the ocean beneath. You may feel lost. You may feel broken. But beneath those feelings is something whole, something untouched by circumstance, something unshaken by loss. That is who you truly are. And when you begin to live from that place, storms become sacred teachers. They show you the places you've been clinging too tightly. They reveal the identities you've confused with your essence. They break what no longer serves, so that what is real can remain. In stillness, you begin to see the storm for what it is, a movement, not a truth, a passing weather pattern, not a permanent condition. You no longer fear the rain. You listen to it. You no longer resent the thunder. You respect it. You no longer brace against the wind. You breathe with it. Because you know, the storm is not here to destroy you. It is here to return you to yourself. This is what happens when you make peace with stillness. You stop needing everything to make sense. You stop demanding that pain disappear instantly. You stop fighting what you feel and start allowing what you are. You begin to walk through life with a softness that doesn't collapse and a strength that doesn't harden. You become grounded, not because you're invincible, but because you're deeply connected to the invincible truth beneath it all. That truth cannot be explained. It must be experienced. It lives in the silence between thoughts, in the space between breaths, in the quiet after tears, in the pause before action. It is the truth that you are already whole, even in the middle of your unraveling, that you are already enough, even when everything falls apart, that you are already home, even when the world feels like it's on fire. Stillness is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming no one for a while so that the real you can rise. It's about releasing the tension of trying to hold the sky up and remembering that it holds itself. It's about seeing that peace was never out there. It was always beneath the storm, waiting, watching, unmoved, unchanged, unbroken. And once you've touched that place even for a moment, you will never forget the way back. Even when life roars, even when the wind screams, even when fear tells you, you won't survive this, something inside you will remember. You've survived before. Not because the storm stopped, but because you learned how to sit in the center of it without losing yourself. That is your power. Not your knowledge, not your strength, not your performance, but your stillness. That is what changes everything. Not by force, but by presence. Not by control, but by awareness. And so, in this moment, if you are tired of the storm, don't run. Don't resist. Don't demand an answer. Instead, return to your breath, to your center, to the stillness beneath it all. It is waiting for you. It always has been. And when you rest there, even if just for a breath, you will know, nothing outside you has the power to break what is eternal within you. You are not behind in life, you are right on time. There's an ache that lives quietly in many hearts, a persistent, unspoken anxiety that follows you like a shadow. It whispers through your thoughts, colors your decisions, and weighs down your spirit. It shows up every time you look at someone else's life and feel a subtle panic rise within. They're ahead, I'm behind. I should be further by now. Maybe you don't say it aloud. Maybe you smile and push forward. But deep inside, there's a quiet urgency that keeps telling you that your life is running late. You scroll through timelines, success stories, announcements, milestones. You watch others hit their goals, get married, build families, land careers, buy homes, start businesses, write books, become known. And you wonder, often in silence, what's wrong with me? Why am I not there yet? The world doesn't make it easy. From the moment we are young, we're handed invisible timelines. Graduate by this age, marry by that one, have children, build wealth, be somebody, don't fall behind. But behind what? Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from the stories we attach to our lives, not from life itself. And one of the most painful stories we carry is the myth of being behind. It's the illusion that life is a linear race, that there's a correct order, a set of milestones you must hit, or else you've failed. It's the belief that your worth is determined by your pace. But here's the truth. There is no race. There is no universal timeline. There is only your path, your rhythm, your unfolding. The cherry blossom does not bloom in winter. It waits, in silence, in stillness. Beneath the surface, life is stirring, but to the outside world, it looks like nothing is happening. And then, in its time, not a moment sooner, it bursts into flower, and no one questions whether it is late. It is simply beautiful because it bloomed when it was ready. So must you. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly where you are meant to be. The pain you feel when you compare yourself to others is not a signal that you're behind. It's a signal that you've forgotten your own pace. You've stepped out of your body, out of your breath, out of your present, and into someone else's storyline. But your life is not meant to look like anyone else's. You were not designed for duplication. You are not a replica, you are a revelation. And revelations don't follow schedules. When you begin to see life not as a race, but as a journey of unfolding, something shifts inside you. You start to realize that being behind is a construct of a world that measures worth in numbers and outcomes, not in presence or truth. You begin to honor the seasons of your life, even the slow ones, especially the slow ones. The slow seasons are not punishments, they are preparations. They are the times when your roots grow deep, your soil enriches, your foundation strengthens. They are when you learn patience, self-trust, and surrender. They are when you hear your soul more clearly, because the noise of striving has quieted. It is in these seasons that your transformation takes root, not in what you show the world, but in who you are becoming in silence. Everyone blooms in their own time. Some rise early, like the sunflowers who greet the morning. Others bloom late, like the moonflowers who wait for the mystery of the night. Neither is better. Both are beautiful. You may not be where you thought you'd be, but maybe that's the point. Maybe life's delays are sacred detours, designed to teach you things you couldn't learn at full speed. Maybe the waiting is where the becoming happens. Maybe the pauses, the heartbreaks, the setbacks, they're not barriers, but invitations. Invitations to slow down, to look within, to rediscover who you really are when the world is not clapping. You don't need to catch up, you need to come back. Back to your breath, back to your truth, back to the quiet wisdom that says, this moment is not a mistake. Let go of the timeline, let go of the panic, let go of the belief that you must earn your place in this world by constantly doing, achieving, proving. You are not behind in life. You are walking a path that no one else has walked. You are carving a road that never existed before you. And that takes time. It takes time to unlearn the noise. It takes time to shed the expectations. It takes time to hear your true voice beneath the voices of others. It takes time to heal. It takes time to grow in a way that is real and not performative. And it takes time to realize that your life does not need to look spectacular to be meaningful. Your peace does not come from getting there. It comes from fully arriving here. It comes from meeting yourself in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this version of your life without trying to rush to the next. That doesn't mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the process. You can still move forward. You can still evolve, but not from panic, from presence, from joy, from the knowing that you're not behind, you're becoming. So take a breath. Let the weight of timelines fall off your shoulders. Let the comparison dissolve. Look around. This is your life. It is not waiting to begin, it's happening now. The laughter, the mess, the quiet mornings, the lonely nights, the uncertain steps, the small joys, the subtle beauty. It's all real, it's all worthy, it's all yours. And it is not too late. Not for healing, not for starting, not for trying again, not for joy, not for love, not for peace. There is no moment in your life where you have been anything less than right on time. You have not missed your purpose, it is unfolding within you. You have not failed, you are learning in ways that will serve you later. You are not broken, you are being reshaped. You are not behind, you are blooming in your own sacred rhythm. And when you begin to trust that, really trust it, life softens, the pressure fades, the breath deepens, the joy returns. And in that space, you begin to live, not to prove, not to impress, but simply to be, as you always were. You don't have to have it all figured out. Clarity comes from living. We are taught to chase clarity like a final destination, as if there's a magical moment when all the pieces of life fall perfectly into place and the fog lifts, never to return again. We are told to plan, predict, calculate, to have 5-year goals, 10-year maps, contingency strategies. We are praised for knowing exactly what we want, where we're going, how we'll get there. We seek control because we mistake it for confidence. But beneath the surface of all that certainty, there's fear. A fear of the unknown, a fear of failure, a fear of wasting time, a fear of making the wrong choice and losing everything. And so, we wait. We wait until we have it all figured out. We wait to start. We wait to speak. We wait to move. We wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect understanding, and in that waiting, life passes us by. But Buddhism teaches something radical, that clarity does not come from thinking, it comes from living. It is not a reward for perfection, it is a companion of presence. It arrives not when everything is certain, but when we are finally willing to step into the mystery without guarantees, without maps, without needing to control what comes next. You don't need to know where the entire road leads, you only need to take the next step. That's how life works. That's how clarity works. It is not a light that shines all the way to the end. It is a lantern that illuminates just a few feet ahead. You must move to keep seeing. But we are afraid of moving without answers. We fear getting it wrong. We fear wasting our time. So we overthink. We delay. We search endlessly for signs, for certainty, for proof that we will succeed before we even begin. But no map can reveal what only the journey can teach. You cannot think your way into your purpose. You cannot plan your way into passion. You cannot calculate your way into love, into healing, into becoming. You must live. You must try, fail, adjust, begin again. You must walk through the fog, not around it. Because clarity does not shout, it whispers. And you cannot hear that whisper from a distance. You hear it when your hands are in the dirt, when your heart is beating through risk, when your spirit is stretched by experience. It's not the knowing that leads to action, it's the action that leads to knowing. You may not know who you are until you live a little. You may not know what matters until you've tried what doesn't. You may not know what lights you up until you walk through a few dark rooms. And that's not failure. That's how growth works. That's how truth works. It reveals itself in motion, not in stillness. That doesn't mean rushing blindly. It means moving with presence. It means listening as you go. It means being willing to start even when your voice shakes and your vision is blurry. It means trusting that your path is allowed to evolve as you do. So many people feel stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they think they need total clarity before they act. They believe they must be certain before they choose. But what they don't realize is that clarity isn't the starting point, it's the result. Start something. Try something. Speak from where you are, not where you think you should be. Make art that isn't perfect. Show up even if you feel unsure. Follow curiosity instead of certainty. Let your life be a living question, not a fixed answer. You are not a blueprint. You are not a business plan. You are not a resume. You are a living, breathing, changing Suland. Your clarity will grow as you do. Some people think they missed their chance because they made the wrong choice. But there are no wrong choices. There are only choices that lead to growth, to learning, to the next unfolding. Even detours contain direction. Even mistakes contain momentum. Even endings contain beginnings. It is all sacred. It is all part of the unfolding. And when you begin to trust that, you stop waiting to feel ready. You start building readiness as you go. You don't wait to be brave. You become brave by moving through fear. You don't wait to be wise. You become wise by listening to your life. You don't wait for clarity. You grow it like a garden, with time, with attention, with care. So release the pressure to have it all figured out. You are not late. You are not lost. You are simply living. And every breath, every misstep, every spark, every silence, it all counts. It all teaches. It all belongs. This is how you create a life that feels true, not by designing it in your head, but by daring to live it with your heart. Clarity will come, not all at once, not in a straight line, but in glimmers, in nudges, in moments of recognition when something clicks and you realize, this is it, this is me. Those moments don't arrive through endless analysis. They arrive when you choose to trust that the fog will lift once you begin walking. Let yourself begin. Not when it's perfect. Not when it's clear. Now, as you are, where you are, with what you have, that is enough. Because the path you seek is not out there waiting to be discovered. It is waiting to be created by you. One choice at a time. One breath at a time. One step at a time. Stop searching for peace outside. The answer was always within you. From the moment we begin to suffer, we begin to search. We search for relief, for escape, for explanation. We search for someone to understand us, something to fix us, somewhere we can finally breathe. The search is loud. It is urgent. It becomes the undercurrent of our every action. We chase new goals, new habits, new relationships, new places, new versions of ourselves, all with the quiet, trembling hope that maybe this will be the thing that makes the ache go away. Maybe this time we'll find peace. We are trained to look outward for the solution. From childhood, we are taught that peace lives in arrival, in achievement, in applause, in answers, in control. So we pour ourselves into the future, convinced that once everything lines up just right, then we will finally be okay. But the problem is not that we haven't found peace. The problem is that we've been looking in the wrong direction. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we look for permanence in impermanent things. And that's exactly what we do when we try to find peace in the outer world. We anchor our sense of okayness to the changing, shifting, fragile conditions of life, and then we wonder why we feel so unstable. Peace cannot live in a world that is always changing. Peace cannot depend on circumstances that are beyond your control. Peace cannot survive in a mind that is constantly chasing and resisting, clinging and avoiding. Peace is not something you achieve, it is something you uncover. It is not something you find, it is something you remember. It has always been there. Quiet. Waiting. Beneath the noise, beneath the chaos, beneath the fear. It was never gone. You were simply looking everywhere, except the one place it has always lived within you. Think about it. You've had moments, fleeting but real, where everything felt still, even if nothing outside changed. Maybe it was a sunset that made you forget your to-do list. Maybe it was a deep breath that softened your panic. Maybe it was a moment of surrender, when you finally let go of control and felt, for a brief second, weightless. In those moments, you didn't create peace. You returned to it. And that return is always available to you, not because the world becomes peaceful, but because you do. Peace is your natural state beneath the storm of thought. It's what remains when you stop trying to fix, control, or perfect your life. It's what rises when you stop arguing with what is and begin to embrace it fully. But this kind of peace is not passive. It's not a numb escape or a spiritual bypass. It's not pretending that pain doesn't exist. It's the deepest form of courage to sit with your reality exactly as it is, without needing it to be anything else. It's the courage to feel what you feel without judgment, to let life flow without resistance, to let go without fear, to stay rooted even when everything around you is moving. Most people believe that peace is what happens when the problems disappear. But true peace is what happens when you no longer need to be free from problems in order to feel okay. It is not freedom from life. It is freedom within life. So how do you return to it? Not by chasing, but by slowing. Not by fixing, but by feeling. Not by escaping, but by entering fully into this moment, exactly as it is. You begin to notice your breath not as a technique, but as a truth. You begin to observe your thoughts not as enemies, but as clouds passing through the vast sky of your awareness. You begin to listen not to the noise outside, but to the silence within. And slowly, something shifts. The panic softens. The urgency quiets. The space between your thoughts widens. And in that space, you find something sacred, something steady, unshaken, always present. You find you, not the you that the world expects, not the you that performs, but the you that simply is. That's what inner peace truly is, coming home to yourself. Coming home to the part of you that was never broken, the part that was never in danger, the part that does not depend on titles, timelines, or external approval. The part that is whole even when life is messy. That peace doesn't come in fireworks. It comes in whispers, in presence, in the willingness to sit still with your own heart and not run from what you find. So many people spend their entire lives running from silence. They fill every moment with distraction, noise, stimulation, achievement, because silence scares them. It feels empty. It feels unfamiliar. But in truth, silence is not empty. It is full, full of clarity, full of healing, full of the answers you've been too busy to hear. When you finally stop running, you meet yourself. And that meeting is the beginning of everything. You see, you never needed to find peace. You needed to stop believing that you were separate from it. You needed to stop outsourcing your worth to a world that changes every 5 minutes. You needed to stop waiting for everything to be okay out there and realize that you already have what you're looking for in here. This isn't about retreating from the world. It's about remembering that the world does not define your state of being. It influences it, yes, but it does not own it. You are allowed to feel peaceful even when others are anxious. You are allowed to move slowly in a world obsessed with speed. You are allowed to soften even when the world gets hard. Because peace is not a luxury. It's not something you earn when you're finally done suffering. It's something you claim, moment by moment, breath by breath, as your birthright. The world will keep spinning. The storms will still come. The changes, the heartbreaks, the losses, they are all part of being human. But beneath it all, peace remains. You are not here to find it. You are here to remember it, and to live from it. So, sit, even for a moment. Close your eyes. Feel the aliveness in your chest. Notice the breath as it moves in and out. This is it. This is the peace that doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. This is the home you've been searching for. This is the beginning of your return. And every time you forget, that's okay. Peace is not fragile. It will always welcome you back, because it was never gone, only hidden. And now you remember. True strength is learning to be soft in a world that tried to make you hard. From the very beginning, the world teaches us that to survive, we must harden. We are told to be strong, to not cry, to hold it together, to keep moving. We are told that vulnerability is weakness, that softness is naive, that emotions are messy, things to be hidden away. We are taught that the strong ones are the ones who don't flinch, don't break, don't feel too much. And so, we begin the long process of armoring ourselves. We build walls around our hearts. We bite our tongues when we want to scream. We hold our breath when we want to cry. We laugh when we're in pain, pretend we're fine when we're not, smile when we feel like breaking. All of it becomes part of the mask we wear to navigate a world that often feels too sharp, too fast, too cold. And yet, somewhere deep inside, something begins to ache. Not because we are weak, but because we have denied our softness for too long. Because we have confused strength with silence, and resilience with numbness. Because we have forgotten that the most powerful force in the universe is not hardness, it is the ocean that yields, the flower that blooms, the heart that stays open. Buddhism teaches that the path to liberation is not through resistance, but through acceptance. That the way to transcend suffering is not by avoiding feeling, but by feeling so fully that we dissolve the illusion of separation. It is not about becoming hard to survive it. It is about becoming soft enough to see clearly. True strength is not how well you hide your pain. It's how deeply you allow yourself to feel it without letting it define you. It's not in how many battles you win, but in how many hearts you refuse to harden in the process. We live in a culture that praises invincibility. But what is invincibility if it costs you your humanity? What is success if it builds walls around your spirit? What is toughness if it becomes a cage? To be soft in a hard world is not weakness. It is rebellion. It is courage. It is clarity. It means choosing to stay open in a world that constantly tells you to shut down. It means meeting aggression with calm, cruelty with compassion, noise with stillness. It means allowing the world to touch you, not to wound you, but to awaken you. It means understanding that your softness is not the opposite of strength, it is the source of it. Imagine a river. It flows around every obstacle. It bends, it yields, it does not resist. And yet, over time, it carves through mountains. That is the power of softness. That is the strength of surrender. But surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go of the illusion that you must control everything. It means releasing the grip that has kept your soul clenched for too long. It means recognizing that real safety comes not from building walls, but from building trust in your own ability to meet life as it is, not as you wish it to be. When you begin to live this way, something profound happens. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop defending and start listening. You stop bracing and start breathing. And in that breath, you find space. Space to heal, space to rest, space to be human. You start to notice the beauty in the ordinary, the tenderness in a passing glance, the stillness between heartbeats, the way your chest rises and falls like waves. You realize that nothing in life has to be perfect to be sacred, that your emotions are not enemies, they are teachers, that your wounds are not weaknesses, they are doors to deeper compassion, that your tears are not signs of fragility, they are signs that you are alive. When you embrace softness, you begin to live more fully, not in spite of the pain, but because of your willingness to be with it. You stop rushing to escape discomfort and start learning from it. You stop performing and start belonging to yourself, to others, to the moment. You begin to understand that every time you choose softness over hardness, presence over performance, love over fear, you are not breaking down, you are breaking open. And what breaks open heals. We are all carrying silent battles. We are all holding stories that have shaped us in ways we can't always explain. The world doesn't need more people pretending to be okay. It needs more people willing to be real, to speak their truth, to feel deeply, to be gentle with themselves and others. That gentleness is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Because in a world that moves fast, burns bright, and demands so much gentleness is how we return to our breath, to our body, to our heart, to each other, to what matters. So if you feel too much, don't apologize. If you cry easily, don't shrink. If you love deeply, don't harden. Your sensitivity is not a flaw, it is your superpower. It allows you to notice what others miss, to hold space where others retreat, to love in a way that transforms not just the people around you, but the world. You were not born to be numb. You were not born to be a soldier in someone else's war. You were born to be awake, to feel, to care, to soften, and in that softness, to heal. It takes strength to build walls, but it takes far more to tear them down. It takes strength to fight, but it takes far more to forgive. It takes strength to endure, But it takes far more to surrender, to let go, to trust. And when you finally begin to see that, you no longer see softness as something to fear but as something to protect. You tend to it like a sacred flame. You listen to its wisdom. You let it guide you back when the world tries to pull you away. Because in the end, it is not your sharp edges that will save you. It is not your armor. It is not your victories. It is your tenderness, your presence, your quiet resilience, your willingness to remain human in a world that keeps trying to make you forget. That is your strength, and it will carry you further than any mask ever could. So come back to yourself. Let the hardness fall away. Let your breath soften. Let your gaze soften. Let your heart soften. This is not the end of you. This is the beginning. And it is more than enough. You've walked through rivers of thought. You've sat with stillness. You've breathed through fear. You've unlearned the weight of control. You've remembered that strength is not force, is surrender. You've listened not to the noise of the world, but to the silence of your own heart. And now, something within you is softer, quieter, wiser, not because life has become easier, but because you've stopped resisting it. Not because your pain vanished, but because you've stopped fighting it. Not because the chaos disappeared, but because you've found the calm within it. This journey was never about fixing yourself. It was never about finding something outside to complete you. It was always about returning to the part of you that already knew the truth. The part of you that was buried beneath years of trying, proving, rushing, fearing. The part of you that doesn't need a plan to feel peace. That doesn't need validation to feel worthy. That doesn't need to know the ending in order to trust the beginning. That part of you was always here. Still, steady, whole. You just needed to slow down long enough to hear it whisper. And now you know. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to chase what is already within. You are allowed to trust life. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to begin again every breath, every day. Let the river carry you. Let the leaves fall without panic. Let the rain come without resistance. Let joy arrive without guilt. Let pain move through you without shame. Let life happen, not because you've given up, but because you've awakened. You've realized that control is not peace. Certainty is not peace. Perfection is not peace. Presence is peace. So live from that presence. Walk slower. Breathe deeper. Speak kinder. Hold softer. And when you forget us, you will return. Not with punishment, not with pressure, but with the same gentle compassion you've been learning to give to the world. You were never meant to carry the whole path in your hands. You were only ever meant to take one step at a time, with your heart open and your soul unclenched. Now you know the way. It's not out there. It's in here. Always was. Always will be. Let life flow and you will find yourself. Again and again and again.